traveling the vortex.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
This is so awesome.
This is great news.
New doctor.
Fantastic. We're so excited this week.
I'm beside myself with excitedness.
Oh,
They
I
could
know.
not have just of all the
I know. I just
galaxy of
now
stars.
can't wait for Matt to leave.
This guy is
what?
like the perfect choice.
He's so perfect.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely
there's
perfect.
Absolutely
Best choice ever.
No other person could they.
I mean,
pick.
of everybody, and we said it before, we've said it again. Stephen Moffat knows what he's doing, and Moffat we trust. He's going to make it work, and they did. They
I know.
nailed
Absolutely. Robert Sheehan's going to be fantastic.
No, I had this when I saw it announced. I said, you know what? I can tell the guys now. I told you so. Stephen Fry. It blew my mind when I saw Stephen come out on the stage.
Do you remember all the way back when we first started discussing it, and you were very sad, Keith, because maybe Matt's leaving, and I said, no, Stephen Mangan from Dirt Gently, he's going to be awesome, and I will be proven right come November. Stephen Mangan is the Doctor.
Just, I mean, I'm so ecstatic. I mean,
No better choice than Nathan.
No,
He's so good.
Stephen Fry. I know it's incredible. Stephen Fry will be the best Doctor.
I can't wait for Stephen Mangan to just come barreling out of the TARDIS with all that energy. It's going to be just, I might squeal again.
I believe you can get me through the night.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed at episode number 136, and we've broken the Dreamweaver. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you
We've
guys?
successfully disconnected ourselves from the Dreamweaver today.
Those electronic diodes are sticky. I've got this residue on my head.
I don't know what Sean's going to do with this scrap of metal here now that's
Yeah.
left over from it.
I can sculpt something, I guess.
So how are you guys doing this week? Other
Now
than
that
the big announcement, which
Now
we're
that
going to
we've
talk
done
about.
that, I'm not sure it worked.
Well, we're stuck
Too
with
late
it.
now.
There's one listener out there that listened to the audios and went, that was really clever, guys. And everybody else is going, what's going on? This is a Flash Gordon thing, isn't it? I don't get it.
What'd you guys do this week?
I played a lot of Lego Lord of the Rings.
Ooh, how'd you do? Are you done?
Not yet. I'm over 50%.
The hub is this.
And
That's the worst part.
That's what I'm doing now. Is I'm working
Side
through
adventures.
free play, getting all the free plays, which hasn't been too bad. And I've been kind of focusing my free plays to get certain bricks for extras, and then we'll go through and
Do it again for the object.
well, I'm still getting everything,
Oh,
but
okay.
then I will, after I complete the free play of each of the levels, then I will wander the countryside doing
and
everything
get the
else
side-
because
side
then I'll be done.
missions. Yeah.
Aside
are you
from
getting
crafting everything?
So while you get the bricks, you're also getting the 3 objects you're supposed to pick
Yes,
up.
yeah,
in
I'm
the certain
completing
stories. Yeah.
the free play levels completely, so I don't have to worry, so I don't have
Good
to go
call.
back to them at all.
I missed a couple of the items and had to go back and play the whole thing again just to get the one or
But
two items.
once you got the item, you can quit, which is nice.
Yes,
unlike,
you can.
Unlike
Yes,
the
you
old
can.
version.
But some of the items I missed were way at the end of the level. So.
yeah,
Can you,
I've been
can't
cheating
start down
and
low.
getting online to make sure I'm getting
Getting
all of them.
everything. Yeah.
Can you achievement with 2 people playing at the same time, or is it all first player?
It's all
only?
first player only. They
Mostly
will
first player.
never go. I
Stupid
mean, you can
Legos.
achievement on
There is one achievement to complete a level co-op,
Ooh.
which I tried cheating my way through that and it didn't work.
Didn't work.
So I'm actually going to have to play a level co-op. I'll make Sarah play with me.
Yeah, this Sarah can fire it. She can just follow you around.
Yeah. Well, I'll pick a short level. It won't take long. Other than that, I picked up the white whale of my book collection.
Yeah.
If you saw my picture, ever since I read the book Fight Club, I've been in love with it, and have always wanted to find the first edition, because that's my thing. I like to find the first edition hardbacks of whatever books I really like and upgrade them to that. And I've looked online, and it's couldn't bring myself to pay $50-some for the first edition. And if it's signed, you don't even want to see how much those things are.
I'm sure.
I'm glad now I didn't buy it for you. I actually had one.
Oh, did you look one up?
I had one kind of earmarked as a possible Christmas present, and it was kind of like... it was expensive.
Yeah, it's I want to collect it, but I just can't bring myself to pay that kind of money, no matter how much I love it.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
And I found it.
Well, if
and
y'all made a little more money,
yeah,
then
it's gonna make a difference.
it'd be a little easier.
when I'm rich and famous, if I hit that 400 million Powerball, you guys got it easy. You go, hey, it's my birthday this week. Here's a Ferrari. You know, just, why not? Here. I saw this and thought of you. You will want for nothing. Don't worry about it. Until then,
worry about it.
Keep scouring the used bookstore.
Yeah, I was in our local library, and they have a little boutique, and on the shelf, boutique, yes, and it was $4. And I saw it on the shelf, and my jaw just kind of dropped, and I was like, "Is that really?"
Was it a jaw and a heart thing? Where
a little bit.
A
I was
little
just
skip
like,
in your chest. Like, this can't be real.
And then I pulled it off the shelf, and my hands started sweating. And I was like, "Oh, fine."
$4.
$4.
That's awesome.
That's the cheapest I've ever found any of my first edition hardbacks.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned to you earlier, you helped the library.
Yes,
too,
I did.
Because all the
money
proceeds
goes back.
goes to the Friends of the Library, which do a lot of things.
I wonder if they didn't know what they had.
I'm sure they didn't, or they wouldn't have marked it at $4.
$4. Although I do need to get an eraser because it was pencil on the page.
That's the nice thing about the boutique.
It's
is
at
they
least a
always
pencil.
do it in pencil. Always in pencil.
Better than having a sticker on it because it's in great condition.
Yeah.
That was my week.
Very cool. Sean, did you do anything exciting this week?
I worked a lot, which, yeah, there's going to be a lot of that coming. And then we watched Sunshine Cleaning, which is kind of one of those little oddball indie films that's been on the list for a long time that we just never got to. And it's about two sisters who go into business with each other as a... what is it called when the cleanup crew who comes into a crime scene cleanup and blood and whatever has gone on in the crime scene, somebody has to come in and clean it up and dispose of it, and say they go into business for themselves, and it's kind of billed as this quirky, dramatic, in the vein of Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah, it always tried to promote itself that way.
Well, it's not.
It didn't look like that way.
It was quirky, and it was a cute film, but it didn't have nearly the same heart or the same emotional core or the laughs that Little Miss Sunshine had, because I love Little Miss Sunshine. And this one just kind of, it came about, it did its thing. It was a fine movie. I'm glad I watched it, but at the same time, there was one kind of big dangling plot thread with one of the characters left at the end of the movie, which was designed to be ambiguous. And I don't like that. You wrapped up everything else. If you're going to leave something ambiguous, make the whole movie ambiguous and let me make up my own mind. That's fine, but don't...
Life of Pi.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Genius movie. Cloud Atlas. Genius movie. This one, just kind of, we're just not going to deal with that. It's like, okay. And Mel and I finished our trek through the animated Superman series.
Oh, nice.
So that we can jump back into Justice League now.
Are you doing Batman Beyond too?
We've already done that one.
Did you finish that? I couldn't remember.
But you don't have to do that one before you do Justice League.
Yes, in a way. Because there's an episode of Justice League Unlimited at the end of toward the end of the series that's designed to be an epilogue to Batman Begins, even though it's technically a prologue.
Batman Begins or...
Beyond.
Batman Beyond. Okay. I keep confusing those two. And I don't confuse them. I just keep saying the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an episode that ends Batman Beyond. It kind of explains...
It kind of sets up how it goes to
It sets it up, and then it also explains what happened. Because it's actually set in the future. It's a Justice League Unlimited that's set in the future.
I see.
So...
Okay.
And I told Mel we watched all 4 seasons of the animated Batman series, all 3 seasons of Batman Beyond, and then watched Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. And I turned to her afterwards and I said, I made you watch 7 years of television to get to this moment, because this is how good this is. So then we started watching Justice League, and Odd Duck Phil was like, you can't watch Justice League until after you've seen Superman. I was like, nah, we're fine. And then we watched an episode of Justice League that very heavily dealt with the mythos of the Superman animated series, and we were a little lost and went, darn it! So we had to go back. So we rewatched that one tonight. Now we're ready to continue on. But other than that, no, haven't really done much. Getting ready for school to start. Ugh.
We didn't do much this week other than we bought a new car yesterday.
Ooh,
new car!
We bought a Pontiac G6. Yes, we bought a discontinued car and discontinued company. But
I have a Pontiac too. So
what happened was Holly, the transmission in her car, we have a Dodge Stratus that we've just sunk way too much money in anyway, and the transmission finally went out in it, and it's outside its warranty, and we were going to have to pay a lot of money to replace the transmission or just bite the bullet and buy a new car. And so we decided, well, we can't really afford another car payment right now, but we can't really afford to pay what we're going to have to pay to replace this transmission either. So we went with the lesser two easels and got a better car. So we also put a warranty on this one that's going to cover anything. That'll
Nice.
But it's nice. It drives nice.
What year is it?
It's a 09. So it's only a few years old. Yeah. And then that's about it. That was, we spent the week. Well, now my car's breaking down, but my truck's breaking down. But I just got to find a tire that is. It's elusive because it's not manufactured anymore. So I've got to get it ordered because I called all over today and couldn't find it. So anyway, that's been a headache, but not so bad. And I've lost 25 pounds now. So haven't been in the 280s for a long time.
Congratulations.
A long time. So yes, thank you. So I have to pat myself on the back out there publicly because I have to. Part of my diet plan is the not just positive reinforcement, but the accountability of it. So if you find me bragging about my weight loss on this podcast, there's a reason for it, because the program that I'm on requires accountability. So you'll probably, those of you that follow me on Facebook and Twitter will see me post a lot of my walks and things like that. And again, it's accountability, and you feel free to encourage me or discourage me or whatever you want to do. But like I say, that's part of the program that I'm on. So, or
feel free to get on your bicycle and get out there and right in front of him on his walks with the cheesecake.
Absolutely.
Come on, Glenn.
Dangle that carrot. Anyway, that's all I did.
I feel like I lost all that weight because I cut my hair off.
You did. You cut. You're
back to wedding length.
Pretty short. Yeah, it looks good though.
Thank you.
It doesn't. I can't.
Well, should we move into the big announcement that we did this week?
Yeah, I guess they announced some actor that's going to play some role on something or other.
Stephen McGann.
This is.
Wait,
we always do that. We something happened this week. I don't know what it was. It seemed pretty insignificant.
Stand by. Dead horse whipping.
Peter. I got it. Peter
Capaldi.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Was announced today as the 12th Doctor.
I don't like
Although
it.
it's technically 13th. But
I don't like it.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be.
We don't know that yet.
You know that T-shirt that says William and Pat and John and Tom and it's got all the. Now we've got two Peters.
Yeah, we got two Peters
I don't like
because somebody posted the last names and we had two Bakers at one time.
Yeah. So the first names was the only thing that differentiated them.
And it was kind of cool to have Peter Davison on set.
It was
when they announced
neat.
it. To have him there and the two Peters.
Peter Davison, and you know who wasn't there? David Tennant.
It's true.
He's been doing everything. He wasn't there.
But I was really impressed by the amount of people they got to talk on the interviews.
Yes. Well, Colin Baker was in the clips. Matt was in the clips, obviously.
Yeah.
Which I thought Moffat would be there live.
I thought both of them
didn't
would be
think
there
he
live.
would be there clip wise, but
Wendy? No, not Wendy. Not Wendy Padbury.
No, it was the gal that played Polly,
yeah.
Which you don't see very often.
No, I was surprised
that was
she
really
was there.
cool. I can't remember the actress's name though.
And I liked how Colin said how he wanted to wear what Chris got to wear.
Yeah.
That was pretty neat.
Janet Fielding was one of them. Some people that they just put their names and they didn't have anything.
I think we're supposed to know who they were.
Oh, were we?
Because like the Bruno guy, I kind of recognize him from something, but I'm not sure what.
The Italian guy.
Yeah.
The doctor has to be British.
Yeah, he really didn't contribute much.
No, he really didn't. But for cobbling this special together really quick, because I don't think they've done much planning. They didn't do the announcement. They didn't announce that they were making an announcement until Thursday. Friday they announced that they were making an announcement on Sunday, and then today we actually got the announcement. So there wasn't a lot of time between there. Now they've probably been planning it a little further ahead than that, but realistically, for putting together a half-hour announcement special, they did a really nice job.
Really did.
It was really well done. And what's her name? Bell, Chloe Bell? No,
that seems right.
The gal that was the
host.
Wendy Bell.
Wendy.
Tinker Bell.
Hold on,
Cloister Bell.
I'm trying to look.
What was her name? Anyway,
way to bring that back around.
She was very, very personal and did a really good job in the interviews and whatnot. Wilf, we forgot to mention.
Yes, Wilf was there. That was nice.
Grandpa Wilf.
And Bonnie Langford was in the special.
Yeah, she was in the clips. She was interviewed as well. That was pretty neat. I thought they did a good job. It was a very nice special. And they kind of dropped the ball early that it wasn't going to be a woman because Matt kept saying he. And
doesn't that just kind of automatically, though... I say
do we think Matt actually knew?
Well, I imagine that Matt probably knew.
He knew.
But I don't...
Oh, I guess, yeah,
because he knew that he didn't actually even say... Peter's name in the interview when he
because you
gave him the words
you came up to me
encouragement. But he said he knew he was a lifelong fan or a longtime fan and a great actor, and so he knew that much about him. He just never said his name. I'm sure he knew.
I don't mean
Katie Manning too.
Katie Manning was. Yeah, that's right.
I don't mean this to sound sexist, but just in general, talking about it's like who's going to be the next James Bond or who's going to be the next this. You kind of always go he. It's just kind of a default setting. No,
because Matt knew who it was and was specifically saying it without saying the name. So
Zoe Ball.
Just Zoe Ball. By saying the name.
Ball or Bell?
Ball, according to this.
Ball.
It was Ball. It was Zoe Ball.
Because Zoe Bell is a stunt woman.
Yeah.
That's right. But just saying, her. But just the way in which he was presenting it, it wasn't the generic he, as in just unisex. It was specifically he. So that's at that point that I went, okay, well, it's a he. And then when Zoe Ball had come back and kind of dropped the, you notice Matt kept saying he, but we really don't know for sure yet. It could still be a woman. And then she ended it with the maybe someday type thing. And then I thought, okay, it's totally not going to be a woman now. Yeah. So that eliminates, this many people. But as I was saying to you guys before the show, when she was setting it up and they were having this big grand, kind of building the suspense moment there, and they showed the shot from behind him and you just saw his hand, the first thing I saw was that guy's 40 or 50 based on his hands, because you can always tell people's age by their hands. I don't know if you guys know that. If you don't know how old a woman or a man is, look at their hands. You can usually get within a decade. And then so I said 40s or 50s, probably 50s, and he had a wedding ring on, so I said, okay, he's married. So automatically that eliminated some people as well. And so, but it didn't matter at that point.
Going all the way to the wire, eliminating people off that list.
A minute later, and when they announced it, Caitlin was sitting next to me on the couch, and I went, yeah! And she goes, what? And I said, this is the guy of the people that they've been saying it could be. This is the guy I wanted. So... and it wasn't until Thursday that I saw the rumor that it was going to be him. That I in fact told Keith, I said, I'm pretty sure this is him now that I've heard this.
Mel and I were standing there, and I booted it up on the computer, and we watched it, and they announced it, and he came out, and we went, who the hell is that guy? Because I literally just...
I might have done the same thing had I not seen the thing, and then I went, this is the guy from Fires of Pompeii.
Yeah, no, I didn't see any of the
I kind of had some setup.
So then I went and Googled him and IMDb'd him and looked him up and went, oh, he's that guy! And then I got real excited. So, I was just happy to see older. We all talked that we'd like to see somebody a little older.
I'm really looking forward to seeing where the show goes now and how the dynamic is going to change. That's what I'm most excited about.
I think he and Claire are going to be a very interesting fit all of a sudden.
Yeah. Might be, yeah. Here's the thing, though, and I hate to say this is not age discrimination, but when I knew who it was, we're so used to the manic David Tennant and the manic Matt Smith and the ways that they play it, the very energetic ways that they play it. You see a 55-year-old man. But I've gone back, and today I started watching In the Thick of It, which is the BBC show that he's probably most known for. He's done a lot of stuff. We should say Oscar-winning Peter.
Because
he's actually won an Oscar
for directing.
You just kind of get the Oscar, but he directed the short film. He directed a live-action short and starred in it in 1995, I believe it was, and won an Oscar that year for it. So,
really?
Yeah. So he does have an Oscar, as we were talking about in the loop, but he has an Oscar as well. But anyway, he's done a lot of stuff, and I'm watching one of probably the things he's most noted for, which is In Thick, which is a BBC comedy. It's kind of a dramedy, but and just the it's a very different character from the Doctor, don't get me wrong, but you can see it in his expressions, and that he's going to be a very energetic Doctor, not necessarily a Matt Smith or David Tennant, but he will bring the energy to the Doctor that the Doctor needs.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. I'm getting more and more excited about him as the Doctor the more things that I've seen in. And of course, we saw him in Fires of Pompeii. Was very enjoyable. That he was very subdued, but a very different performance from him as Frobisher in Children of Earth.
Yeah.
Torchwood Children.
And we
of
can't
Earth.
necessarily say that we enjoyed him in that, but
I enjoyed his performance.
yes, that's just it. I mean, he
I didn't enjoy the character.
Did you guys see that he was also once in a punk band?
Yeah, with Craig Ferguson.
Yeah.
Craig Ferguson was the drummer in the punk band,
And it was Peter who pushed Craig to go do comedy.
really.
Yeah.
I had heard that too.
I hadn't know. He is the same age at 55. that
This
William
part
Hartnell.
really excites me. The fact that he's the same age as William Hartnell.
Yeah.
When William Hartnell started all these years ago.
50
in
years
19
ago.
I do have kind of a hard time getting super excited about it because it's still somewhat of an abstract concept for me.
Yeah, I know. Nothing counts until you see it on screen.
Well, no. I have a hard time wrapping my brain around the fact that Matt's not going to be around. And it's kind of like the way it was with Clara.
His voice break a little bit.
Yeah, just a little there. He's holding
And
there.
the same way it was with Jenna Louise Coleman, as we saw the pictures of who she was, but that didn't necessarily translate to exactly what we saw on screen. Costume has a lot to do with it. I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to put him in.
I would agree.
That's true.
And
I think we'll have to wait until December on that.
yeah,
they
I think so
won't- they
too.
won't leak anything
We won't
on
get the
that.
reveal on that. If even
If
then,
then, it
because
might
I mean,
be-
Matt ended in
It
the
took-
Raggedy Doctor. In fact, he was in 11th Hour. It wasn't until the end of the 11th
Yeah.
hour that we actually got to see
So
him.
I'm betting it might not be till first episode of Series 8.
Could be.
Well, in the way Moffat writes, he could spend all the... I mean, even, let's say Matt regenerates in the first 5 minutes of Christmas, and we get Peter in. He could spend the rest of the episode in a Santa Claus outfit.
Well,
Yes.
it's true.
point.
Just to let us wonder.
You imagine you go an entire season in Santa Claus suit. He just likes it. This is good. I like this.
It's comfortable.
This is my outfit.
Crushed velvet, man.
You know,
It's furry and soft.
they didn't go younger,
Deep
but they went
pockets.
thinner somehow.
You think he looks thinner than Matt Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, you're nuts.
I think
he
he
looks
does.
about David Tennant. Somebody's going to mention this later, but that he sort of reminds them of David Tennant, kind of a mix between David Tennant, and they say, I don't remember who it is, I read ahead, but John Pertwee. I really think he has sort of a look of Tom Baker, at least just facial structure,
facially, yeah.
and the build and
the
body
nose.
of David Tennant.
Yeah.
That's, to me, I saw Tom Baker and David Tennant together in this guy. So.
How much of that is because we saw the picture that was photoshopped? With
Well,
the
it
scarf?
could be too with the scarf,
Which I
don't think so, because
I'd like to see somebody bring. That
I've always
back.
thought he kind of has the same eyes and nose structure of Tom Baker, but
I'd like to
You know,
see
he doesn't have the
scarf.
hair for certain.
Maybe not the scarf, but
Not
a
the
scarf.
Well,
A scarf would be nice.
McCoy wore
Yeah, McCoy had a
the
scarf.
little
Yeah.
scarf. and
The small thin
the
one.
small thin
yeah.
one. I think that would be kind of a good look for him.
I since he's a fan, I'm interested to see who he pulls inspiration from.
Well, let's see.
Since what, age 9, he
He
said?
wrote,
Yeah.
well,
When he
9,
wrote that in
9
that-
would have been Troughton. When he was 9,
Yeah.
it would have been Troughton. And then 15, he wrote the letter to Doctor Who magazine, or to the Radio Times. And at that point, it would have been Pertwee, because that would have been
Yeah.
at 72. The only reason I know that is because he's... No, not 72. Yeah, he's 15 years older than me. And he would have been 15 in 72, so...
I would like to see them
Yeah.
pull
Weird math.
Because he's 15 years
It's
older
new
than
math.
you,
Right.
and you were born in 72.
Yes, he would have been
He
15
would have
years
been
old.
15.
So that would have been
I'm glad
1972.
you worked that
Yes.
out,
Well,
because-
it's new math. So 1972 he would have been 15.
You had me
That would have
concerned
been
there for
John
a moment
Pertwee
that
at
maybe
that
you
time.
weren't quite right on those facts. you got that one.
I did it. I'm not good at math, but boy, I can sure pin it from the date of my birth. So
I'm
I'm assuming he
heading
grew up.
eastbound at 600 miles an hour, but I was born in 73.
So I assume he grew up with with Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee.
Yeah.
So now he may have continued to watch Doctor Who into his later life. In fact, he talked about how that particular article he wrote, he had to hide from his wife. He died because how much that totally says geek all over it. You're not going to get a woman with that, but which I thought was hilarious.
And it was very cute about him talking about his daughter being very upset they weren't talking about him as the role. That was very sweet. But I wouldn't mind because
Ray made above it, dear.
David took a lot from 5, and then the trench coat from 4, and Matt took so much from 2. I wouldn't mind seeing some 3 and 4 matchup.
How would you mind? Yeah, would you mind seeing that Pertwee again? Just that style,
crushed velvet suits, and
you don't.
I wouldn't mind at all.
Yeah.
Crushed velvet with a scarf instead of a cape.
Yeah, I don't know that I want necessarily the look, but maybe sort of the performance as Matt put in with the.
I would love to see a return to more of Pertwee's performance.
Yeah,
break out the Venusian Aikido.
Maybe a more dandy doctor.
Now he is older. He's 55, but I don't think 55 is. I mean, he's obviously not decrepit.
55 is the new 30.
Good, because I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's what
you have no idea how pleased I am.
55, literally though, 55 now is
compared to 55 and 63,
a lot younger than it was.
Look at Hartnell. Look how old Hartnell looks at 55.
He looked and played, but he played it
older too. But then again,
considering it was a wig he had,
it was only 10 years later at 65 that he's in The Three Doctors and in a chair.
Was very ill
and
died shortly after that.
Yeah, so I mean. That's not a huge stretch of time.
Yeah, but you look at all of our doctors now; they're in their 60s and 70s. Tom's in his 70s.
That's true.
Peter Davidson's just now, I think, 60, in his 60s. McCoy's in his 60s. McGann is in his 50s. So I mean, and look how young and energetic they maintain, still to this day continue to be. So.
But so do you think way outside the box, but with that age, will we still continue to see a fairly hands-on Venusian Aikido type doctor if they go with a Pertwee? Or will we get a Harry Sullivan? Will we get an Ian? Will we get a younger male companion to tag along with to do the heavy lifting?
It's a good question, except for I think Jenna's on for a while. So unless they bring somebody in and crowd the TARDIS a little bit, maybe. But
we
at
had
55,
Amy and Roy at the same time,
again, though, as we said, Hartnell was playing older, so you kind of needed an Ian. But look at Pertwee; he was probably in his 50s or 60s even at the time that he was playing the Doctor, and he was very hands-on, energetic. Didn't need that, action sidekick. So
a lot of long lenses.
I think, and looking at the energy that
a lot of wide shots.
Looking at the energy that he puts into the stuff that I have seen, Peter's put into the stuff that I've seen.
It's a quiet energy.
It is. It's a quiet energy, but it's not what you would. I mean, we keep saying old man. 55 is not that old. I mean, it's 50 years for me.
Pertwee was 50 when he took the role. It's
positively ancient compared to Matt, but
yes, because Matt took the role when he was 26, 27.
Yeah, that's kind of the baseline.
So yeah, Matt's just now turning 30, or just now turned 30.
Yeah,
yeah. There's the bar. But anyway, so. Super excited. I really now...
There was a great quote I saw when I looked up the ages of all the doctors. From this article, speaking as one who is older than 7 of the 11 doctors were on their debuts and closing in fast on Sylvester McCoy, I find this disheartening, talking about the younger trend. I just thought that was hilarious.
Let's talk a little bit about the young trend, because I think the reception for... Peter
Capaldi.
Peter,
it's going to take us a little bit to get to
the
that.
The reception for Peter Capaldi has been very good, I think, overall,
for the most part.
For the most part, and I think especially in the UK, where his body of work is a little more well known, he's held to kind of a higher esteem. Something that disheartened me today is as I was walking around the library with my kids, I overheard the ladies at the desk, and they were younger ladies, probably in their 20s and 30s, and they were talking about, the new doctor, he's too old. I need a young doctor that I can, the cute doctor. No more cute doctor. No more young doctor. No. That bugs me. I don't know what to say more about it other than that just bothers me that there's people that, I mean, they want to crush on this doctor. It's just, I don't know what to say. That's disheartening to me. Because they're going to turn a lot of fans away from the show, I guess, is what concerns me the most.
And it could. I don't know. I was one of those people I'll be honest, when I saw the very first image of Matt Smith, the really bad image of Matt Smith with the emo
kind of
hair,
like a greaser,
and the TARDIS in the background taking on the backlots of BBC's whatever it was, my first reaction was, he's too young. Oh my God, they casted a kid, in this thing. Mm-hmm. But I reserved judgment until I watched it, and then I fell in love with him from episode 1. So I'm hopeful that maybe this is just that initial knee-jerk reaction that people, especially I've started to come to think of them as the peripheral fringe fan.
Yeah.
The ones that,
the ones that won't recognize classic series. I could see that group being the ones being the most vocal about not liking him being older.
It's difficult because I don't. There have been so many, and Neil Hubian wrote a great piece on it about the classic fans versus the new fans and all that kind of stuff. It was so well written, and I don't want to fall into that trapping of being one of those guys that these new fans are all blah blah. But yeah, they tend to come more from that group. I'll say that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just that initial knee jerk, and that they'll give it a chance, and they'll go, "Wow, this really isn't so bad," and the show continues.
Yeah.
And if they decide not to, and like the Tennant fangirls that want to go cry in the corner because they didn't announce David Tennant's name.
Well, in that case, we just trim the fat, right?
Exactly. Pretty much. Okay. I'm really excited also about the idea of the fact that because he is...
You didn't want to get into
I didn't want to get into
lambasting 12-year-old girls on Twitter.
Well, I've been down that road once before. But it's kind of the same reaction I have to the fans who are adamant that it can't be a woman. Oh, if it's a woman, I'll stop watching Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's just
ridiculous. What? Get out of my fandom.
Yes,
I don't want you around the group anymore. And you're out of the band.
I really like the idea that, and it may not be the case, but because he is an older actor compared to the age of Jenna Louise Coleman, the likelihood of a romantic relationship sparking up, I think, is less likely, and we'll see a more father-daughter type relationship.
Yeah,
and I really like that idea.
Too. That certainly could be too.
Yeah.
Although because
Matt and Clara were kind of flirty, romantic-y a little bit.
There was always that flirt, but it was almost that friendly flirting more so than just that like pining type. You know what I mean? So that's at least good that they didn't go the Rose or more.
And it very well could have been, because Rose and Eccleston kind of had similar, bit more pining than what Matt and Jenna had, but then it really went heavy once he regenerated.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see that in the.
Of course, I always ship Chris and Rose.
I know you ship Chris and Rose, and every time you say you ship Chris and Rose, I can't quite wrap my brain around
it either. Yeah,
on Rose's end, yes, not on Chris's.
Yeah,
and it wasn't until David came along that all of a sudden there was that connection there.
See, but I didn't even see it so much from Rose. I saw more of a fascination in the 10th Doctor's, or the 9th Doctor's era. And
maybe that's cool. I like
curiosity
better
and whatnot. But it wasn't until the regeneration that I saw Rose then start to kind of...
Well, because it's not until... Because, I mean, you look at the Rose 9 years, and it's very unknown. We've got Mickey at home, and I'm not sure how I deal with this. And then when Adam comes into the picture, both the Doctor and Mickey are backburned at that point.
And
then Captain Jack comes in.
So jealous of Adam and Mickey and Jack, that's where I kind of see it from the Doctor's perspective.
I don't know if
he only gets a little bit of a jealous twinge when Jack comes into the picture.
Yeah, Jack more. Jack the most.
But I think it's more of but he's not so much jealous. It's just it's Jack is so dripping with smarmy that
dripping.
It turns
That's a
him.
great word
it turns him off.
Captain Jack. Doesn't matter what he's dripping. He's dripping. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that's it. But I mean, just because I don't think he was ever jealous of the other guys. I think more than anything, it was they are a hindrance and they're in the way to what we have to do. You know.
Yeah.
And when in which one is it with the game station?
With Adam.
No.
The one with Simon
before
Pegg.
Party
The Long Game.
Oh, the Long Game. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
He's
that station. There's like 3 times they were in that.
Yeah.
station.
and he's the doctor's dripping with detest almost, but yes, your boyfriend can come along. I mean, he's not happy at giving Adam a chance. And
See, I
ultimately
disagree.
proven right, but
I disagree because I think that it's not that he doesn't want to give him a chance. I think it's more of an initiation thing. It's like, I don't know if this guy's going to work out. It's not so much that he detests Adam.
Well,
it's more of
and
he's actually enjoying teasing Rose about having a little bit of a crush on Adam.
See, I almost saw it as he was doing that to kind of protect himself because he wanted more with Rose.
You know, in 2 months we're going to be doing this again.
I'll probably
That's true because I'm wanting to go back and rewatch from the movie to present day before the 50th starts.
Well, there you
Are you going to
go.
watch all the
You
new
get
Who
going.
before the 50th? Wow.
But notice how I
endeavor
put
there.
the.
I know, I like how you put the movie in there.
I told Sarah because she hasn't seen the movie yet. Next month, since we're doing 8th Doctor next month, she's going to sit down and we're going to watch it together.
So back to Peter Capaldi.
just in case you hadn't...
That was a better
Before we
tangent than we've
derail
done
this
before.
train.
Just in case you hadn't picked up on it from our joke prelude and some of the old guy comments around the table, I think we're all on the same page. We're all ecstatic over this choice, right?
Ecstatic, yeah.
I know you're ecstatic.
Yeah,
I'm
I am.
jazzed.
I am so jazzed.
You're not
Cautiously
settling in yet.
optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic. That's fair. That's fair. I'm
Because my doctor's leaving. What else do you expect from me?
I knew better than to ask that question of Keith.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
ecstatic. He's just keeping it all inside because it's not real yet.
Yeah. No, of all the names that have been floated, he was the absolute best choice. Now, should it have been Stephen Fry still? Yes, but I'll take this as a good replacement.
So he was the best choice, but Stephen Fry would have been second?
Of the people floated, of the names
floated, I see.
this was the absolute best.
So of all the people, there were probably better people out there. They just didn't get it for consideration.
They could have been, yeah. Well, obviously, it was
Oscar nominees that
Stephen
weren't.
Fry was.
I see. Okay, I got you.
Which I did find it interesting that Stephen was talking about how when they got Matt, there was a long audition process, and this one there wasn't.
Yeah, they knew.
They knew what they wanted.
I also found it interesting that he was floated last time when Matt.
Well,
that Capaldi was floated before.
I bet that was when-
and Moffat said no.
I bet that because before Moffat wanted to go older, and I bet that's who he was thinking of when he said older.
But that was just it. The way that Moffat says it, in the sense it was almost like he couldn't see it, so he didn't go with it. That was just kind of the impression I got from the way he describes it. Not that it was because they found Matt and he had but he blew him away because he did. But
Yeah.
I think he said there were a lot of names and Peter had, but I kind of said no. But then he said this time he
The stars aligned.
Yeah, the stars aligned. Yeah. So anyway, anything else to say about the new guy? Peter Capaldi is the new Doctor.
Peter Capaldi is the new Doctor. You notice we're saying the new Doctor and not the 12th Doctor.
Because we don't really know what number he's going to be yet.
We're not entirely sure how that's
Although
gonna
they
work
kept
out.
saying
They do
12.
keep saying 12. Well, I mean,
You kind of have to.
It's kind of-
he really is at this point.
It's
the
kind of
12th
like
Doctor.
you. He's the 12th Doctor until they change it.
Until I see it on TV.
Until I see it on
Until we know how John Hurt kind of shakes out.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But because of the line from Name of the Doctor of what he did wasn't in my name, even not knowing what the 50th contains and what is going to happen with John Hurt, just from the knowledge we know, he may not be the 12th incarnation of this person, but he's the 12th Doctor. Because by name only, he's the Doctor.
I see what you're
John Hurt wasn't the Doctor.
See, but I disagree because
It's the same
credits,
person.
the very
Well,
end
yes,
says
that's true.
introducing John Hurt as the Doctor. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, yeah. Who knows?
Stephen Moffat.
Yeah, Stephen Moffat.
Well, and everyone who filmed the 50th.
That's true.
Oh, you mean like Paul McGann?
Oh, I hope. Did you see his recent
Paul
comments
debunked
again?
it again, though,
I
on
know.
Twitter.
I know he did.
So, although if I was in it and trying to hold a really big surprise for everybody. There's got to be a reason why they're simulcasting this. And now that was another thing Keith and I talked about. We wondered if maybe
this was
a test to see
which
how
it
the
seemed like it
simulcasting
went
worked.
seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, I was on Twitter while I was watching this thing. There were people from all corners of the globe.
I couldn't get on
watching
Twitter.
this thing. Oh, you couldn't?
I kept trying to get on
The internet
Twitter,
had melted.
and the tweet
The
stream,
internet melted. She says that in the show,
the
too.
tweet stream was like, and I would get, it would come up with a number and say there's 57 new tweets, and I'd get 4. And then I would hit refresh, and it would come up and say there's 148 new tweets, and I would get 2. And every time the number was bigger, and I'd get less, and it was like,
Well, I
I'm
was
not
on my
even going to bother
computer. I wasn't
tweeting.
on my phone. But
Yeah, well, I was
so
on my
I was
phone,
getting
too,
tweeted, but it just people from all corners of the globe.
Was it trending? It had to have been
It
trending.
was.
Doctor Who trended. Doctor Who trended, and I think it's only trended one time, hasn't it? In the top
I don't
10.
remember.
So
You didn't jump all over that? You didn't throw one out there? If you're watching the new Doctor special, come join us on Friday Night Who. Traveling the Vortex. We could have been part of a trend.
didn't.
Oh, well.
But did you
one of the
see
guys
that?
at work.
Did you see that Chrissy and Brittany did a tweet along this afternoon themselves, and they had somebody else join that I had never heard before. They watched Fires of Pompeii and tweeted
I
along
saw
this
that,
afternoon. So
Brittany was going to do that.
yeah, so that was neat. Good job, girls.
Congratulations.
And the guy that joined him. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be
Let me see if I
exclusive.
can
I
find
just
out.
I can't remember his name. I followed him after I saw him tweeting along. So
You scared the dickens out of me.
What?
Well, because I wound up working late and missed the Friday Night Who, which I felt bad about. I got there I got there in time to see maybe half of it. But by that point, I was like, I'm not going to pull the computer out.
You didn't
and jump
tweet
on.
much, 'cause I didn't see
No,
you
I didn't
tweet
tweet
at
at all. I didn't pull the computer out. I just stood in my living room and watched. And what's weird is
You didn't even sit down on the couch?
I didn't even sit down. Well, Drew came over to watch
he
because
said you were there.
he didn't know that he's a huge Neil Gaiman fan.
No, that was James.
James
was there
Yeah,
tweeting.
well, see, that was the thing. James came over, and then Drew asked, because he's a huge Neil Gaiman fan. And I said, well, he wrote an episode of Doctor Who. And his eyes lit up. He went, really? And he didn't know that. So I was like, yeah. And he's written 2 now. And I said, in fact, we're doing one of them for Friday Night Who this week. And he goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, why don't you come over? He goes, okay. So he got permission from the wife, and he came over. And so he sat down and watched it and kind of was like, this is way cooler than I think I've ever given this show credit for. So he's really intrigued now to go back and start
but
watching.
it was a Gaiman exercise.
Well, yeah,
episode that he went.
and it's a good one. But
Yeah,
there's
it's a
also
really
a lot of
good
family
one.
in there. But so I walked in, and he and James are on the couch, but there's no Keith, there's no Glenn. I'm kind of like, I have a new gang. What happened? So I just stood there and watched the end of the Doctor's Wife, and then went back the next day and pulled up the tweet stream, and I went back because I like to double check for whatever reasons I missed. And so I'm reading all these Friday Night Who tweets, and they're all like, "Oh, I love Craig in this closing time Friday Night Who." Yeah, this is a great bit with the
I saw the
Cyberman
guys well.
closing time Friday Night Who, and I was like, Keith, you moron! We're not doing closing time. We told everybody we watched the Doctor, and then I thought, why didn't James say something? Because he was on his computer on Twitter, and I bet he was going, how come none of these tweets match up? And I was about to give up, and I was just going to call you and go, what the hell, dude? But then I scrolled back just far enough, and I saw the one that you had posted about,
They went
I
on.
think I'm going to skip ahead and keep watching. Anybody else join in? Yeah, okay, we'll watch another one. So I was like, oh, all right.
Well, I stayed
It was
home.
a short night, too,
Yeah,
because we
I
usually
stayed
watch
home
a big
because
one.
I was getting my hair cut the next morning, so I wanted to try to get to bed at a decent
You
time.
have the strength. Okay, wait, stop.
I had an appointment.
You had an appointment in the morning. This is the strangest reason to stay home ever. I had a hair appointment the next day. Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
You stayed home.
It's me.
It is,
Because
it
if
is
I
a
would've-
huge
if I would've gone
endeavor
on-
for him to get up before noon.
Yeah, well,
so
that
if the
part I
appointment
get.
is
If-
before noon, he
it
wants to
wasn't,
make sure.
But he
that-
stayed home.
12:30.
He stayed,
Oh my gosh!
He stayed home to get up early and watched another episode.
Yeah,
But he's here in his jammies, comfortable. There's no drive time. I sympathize, Keith. I know
understand,
exactly what you're
because
talking
if I would have gone over, we may have watched another episode or stood around talking for another hour because it was weird to
that
leave so
happens too.
early.
That happens
And I wouldn't
too.
have got to bed till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, as opposed to the 2 o'clock I got to
This
bed.
way, he turns the TV off and he's ready for bed. I completely understand, Keith. I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
you stay home because you have beer in the fridge.
Well, that too. No, and this week I stayed home because I was getting all the car stuff together the night before, so I had it on in the background,
okay.
but I wasn't tweeting. I was watching the tweets and watching the show, but I didn't tweet along much because
did
that's
anybody
I tweeted later. Did Sean not show up tonight either? Because there was no Sean tweets in the stream.
Did anybody else get that weird sense of like old time nostalgia watching The Doctor's Wife?
Oh, because of
I got this double whammy because first of all it was like, hey, there's Rory and Amy. It's been forever. And then they wound up in the 9 console room, and I went, oh.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was such awkward timing, knowing that we were going to get an announcement on Sunday to go back and rewatch some 11th Doctor. My favorite TARDIS team, even.
Not for me because
bittersweet.
Holly's been watching it.
But you're
and
kind of
the
been
kids have
living
been
it,
watching,
yeah.
so I'm living it. Yeah, I'm bouncing all over the new era. So.
We got complimented, too, by both Drew and James. And one of the things that, even though neither one of them have actively listened yet, but they kind of peripherally take very much interest in what we're doing on the podcast, both of them kind of said the same thing. They think that the way that we do it, even though, because we've gotten some complaints before from other people saying, well, you bounce around all over the place, why do you do that? Poor Keith. But both of them kind of said the same thing. It was like, there's kind of a method to that. Because that's really what Doctor Who's all about. Because you can sit down and watch the show and not have to feel like you need to digest all 50 years of it.
That's why we called this Traveling Vortex, because we knew we'd be bouncing just as the Doctor
don't have to watch it in order.
And you don't have to watch. And James said that. James said, Doctor Who, the best way that he says that I can equate it is kind of like a comic book. He says you can jump into a comic book anywhere along the story, along the time stream. And at some point in time, if something important goes down, there'll be a little editorial box that pops up and says, see the events of issue number 45. And you can go back and figure out what's going on. Or they will self-reference and go, do you remember that time that this happened? You know, and he says that's kind of what Doctor Who's like. And so he's really recognized. Drew's wife is a huge Whovian. And so, yeah, she's a very big Who fan, but it's kind of been one of those that you go watch your Criterion films in the other room, and I'll sit here and watch Doctor Who. So I think she may have finally wore him down.
Well, you kind of helped.
I helped.
Introducing a demon.
The shake and bake, and I helped.
Shall we finally get on to feedback?
We should get on to feedback.
I have something a little special prepared for this week in preparation and honor of the 50th and everything that's going on. This is it kind of came to me in the car one day, and it's a little something that I've come to think of as the Ballad of Doctor Who. No, it has nothing to do with the Last Chance Saloon.
Oh, darn it!
Get the earworm out.
You saw.
I saw the look on your face. It's not going there.
But now that song's going through Brenda's head. So.
Yeah, well. Okay, we're good. The Doctor, he does what he pleases. All of his lives, he's the master's toy. And deep in his hearts, he's just a boy. Living his life one day at a time. He's showing himself a really good time. And he's laughing about the way they want him to be. The lyrics wrote themselves. I didn't have to change anything. When you get caught between the moon and Gallifrey. I know it's crazy, but it's true. If you get caught between the moon and Gallifrey, the best that you can do, the best that you can do is write feedback.
I thought you were going to go with Runaway there.
I could have gone with Runaway there. I literally was in the car. That song came on, and I started singing these lyrics in the car on my way to work. And I got to work, and I went, it's Tuesday, and I'm done. So I went home and wrote it down. I was like, sweet. I couldn't believe it. Arthur is the Doctor's life. It's all there.
Without the booze.
He's laughing the way you want him to be, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And,
without the booze.
Pertwee did like his wine.
True.
Okay, first up.
And 11 didn't.
Yes.
What is this? This wine. It's wretched.
Brenda writes in. She says, checking in. Dear Vortex Gang.
And we're glad she is.
Oh, Brenda.
Exciting stuff.
I'm sure you will spend most of tonight dissecting the announcement of number 12, and
We have done that.
frankly knackered from the trip today, but I did want to check in and say I was overwhelmed by the Doctor Who experience. Every time I went around a corner, there was another treasure from the entire history of the show. I especially loved the costumes of each of the Doctors and all the assembled TARDISes,
Sid Rats.
Just standing in front of each TARDIS felt surreal. Going from the first Doctor through the current one. When I entered one room and saw the coral TARDIS with Ten's regeneration playing on a loop in the background, I was just speechless. I thought I'd seen a lot when I got to a sign pointing upstairs and walked up to find an even larger space that featured a lot of monsters. All of the modern companions, a snowman, and the globe of blowing snow, the Pandorica, the Oval Office, every Dalek known to the mind of man, displays of the costumes and makeup stations, and so much more. I took over 300 pictures, but I just don't have the energy to download them now. So look for a more extensive report next week. I thought of you all so many times today when I was standing in front of Dr. Five's costume. Chrissy was with me. K9 made me think of Keith and a display of all the Cybermen heads since the beginning brought to mind Sean and Cyberman Bob. Bessie and Tom Baker's TARDIS and scarf made me think of Glenn. And I looked at everything especially intently so that I can do my best to bring all of you the taste of the experience. It's almost 1 a.m. in the UK now, and I'm still jet lagged, so I'll sign off. Thinking of you all, Brenda in London.
Brenda, I am so jealous.
I didn't know that they had... I knew they had the one room with all of the costumes. I didn't know they had all of the TARDISes.
I didn't know that
I
either.
didn't realize that either until...
excites me on a level that I can't quite explain.
Wouldn't it be awesome to get a picture in front of every era of TARDIS? That would be so...
Yeah. I mean, the sensation at Gallifrey, walking in and seeing it up there, or Planet Comic-Con, and just see there's a TARDIS, and getting that kind of... Could you imagine walking into a room and having multiples of them?
Oh, yeah.
And knowing that... I'm assuming they were all the actual screen-used TARDISes, not just replicas. Most of them, at least.
I would bet there's a few of them that are real, but I would guess that.
But just
most
knowing that some of them could be real,
I don't imagine they've kept a lot of those. It's not in the. I mean, they wiped. Yeah, they wiped half them.
They wiped episodes. I don't imagine they kept props.
But at least from 9 and 10,
yes,
they would keep the outside.
I'm sure.
And so knowing those two on-screen used versions would elevate that even more.
Well, I don't remember which. I think it's on Silver Nemesis that they talk a little bit about the production on that one, and the guy comments that he had the writer had this real surreal experience because they were doing the location shooting, and he crested a hill, and there it was. The TARDIS had been carted out to this field in the middle of nowhere and plopped down for this location shoot, and he had that moment because there it is. And he says, of course, the reality of getting it out there was a whole other experience. You had to shoot it from a certain angle so that you didn't see the bulldozer tracks, because apparently, I don't know, I'm sure they don't still do this, but in the old days, because it was an actual solid box and heavy and everything, they either the base or the entire thing was made out of concrete. And so they had to, big forklift to bring the thing in and out and do that. So I don't imagine...
I don't think it's how it is now.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, that's now it's pre-plastered fiberboard plexiglass something or another.
Now, we'll find this out next week. But she says all of the assembled TARDISes, we don't know that every TARDIS used in the production is there. She's just saying there were...
In my mind.
I'm just preparing you for next week. If she sends it, there's only 3.
In my mind, they're all
but still
there.
Just more than one.
And Idris.
Idris' dress is there, I'm sure.
If they're smart, they, at the very least, made reproductions so they could put it in front of each costume. I think that would be really neat. And then use, obviously...
The costumes are in a different room, I think. I've seen the costume room.
Yeah.
Although they've done a lot of changing since.
Well, that's true.
It's more extensive now.
Yeah. Every Dalek, you know what that means.
Special weapons Dalek.
I can't wait to see your pictures, Brenda.
I can't either.
Could you
It's
imagine?
busy.
I'm overwhelmed just reading this, just listening to her report so far. Could you imagine being there in person the day they make the announcement? I mean, she's got to have Doctor Who bleeding out of her ears at this point in London, in Cardiff. I mean, wow.
That's pretty cool. Yes, we're excited to see more Brenda, and we're looking forward to seeing the pictures.
And I hope whatever that other thing that you actually went there for goes well too.
Yes,
Well, and the set tour she did.
Yes.
Yeah,
She
she
She didn't talk about that at all, so I can't wait to
She
hear
said
that.
she's going to give us a more extensive review. So.
Okay. Who's next?
Up next is David.
David.
David writes, "Hey, Vortex Travelers." Oh, and his caption is, "So, yeah, Doctor. Been meaning to send in feedback for a while, didn't have time, etc. And it turns out I picked a terribly awkward time to decide to send it in. I won't be in a Wi-Fi enabled zone from Saturday to next Saturday, so I have to give my thoughts on the new Doctor without knowing who they are. Writing this at 1 a.m. on Friday, listening to ELO's version of Xanadu."
Sorry.
We did that joke once, didn't we? "It's good, but not as good as new Doctor. Wow, she will be great. Can't wait to see how Moffat handles X in the role. I'm sure they'll do great. Roll X's first series, I say. I hope X gets to face off against Y. Wouldn't that be terrific? I sure hope people don't hate X. They're such a great actor. They should be a great Doctor. So yeah, I'm very pleased that X is the new Doctor. The jaded and exhausted David."
You know, you could put Peter Capaldi's name in there, and it would totally work. Yeah.
Let me reread that. "Wow, he'll be great. Can't wait to see how Moffat handles Peter Capaldi in the role. I'm sure they'll do great. Roll on Peter Capaldi's first series, I say. I hope Peter gets to face off against..."
Cybermen.
Way to default to type here.
Yeah.
"Cybermen.
Silurians.
Wouldn't that be terrific?
Ice Warriors.
I sure people don't hate on Peter Capaldi. He's such a great actor. He should be a great Doctor. So yeah, I'm pleased that Peter is the new Doctor." The jaded, exhausted David. You're right, it still works.
See? Absolutely.
Thanks, David.
Thank
We
you
hope you
very
get some
much,
rest.
David.
All right. Up next is Rachel. And Rachel writes, see if she has a... Hello, thieves.
Whoa, wait.
That's what it says. Hello, thieves.
What have I done now? Why am I always being accused of things?
First, our new Doctor. Wow. The live show, for only being 30 minutes long, felt like a final episode of American Idol. As much as I enjoyed the retrospective bits, along with seeing Peter Davison and Bernard Cribbins in studio, I had no idea Bernard auditioned for John Pertwee's replacement.
That was the coolest
Yeah,
story.
it really was.
It was awesome.
And then what's the first thing I see? Tom punching a guy.
And Colin Baker in video. I wish they'd given Peter Capaldi more time to talk. However, from what I've seen, I think he is an excellent choice for the next Doctor. I love the fact that he's a fan and seems to understand what a big deal this role is with the history and the fan base. And I don't know much about Capaldi other than from the Fires of Pompeii, which I must now watch again, but I think it's very cool that they've pulled a Colin Baker. I don't mind that the Doctor will be older, although he's still not ginger. I get a bit of an older David Tennant mixed with John Pertwee vibe from Capaldi. Not a bad combination in my opinion. I look forward to seeing how Capaldi makes the Doctor his own and the dynamic between him and Clara. And then she gives us a review of The Doctor's Wife. The Doctor's Wife. This has to be one of my favorite episodes of the Matt Smith era. The writing is excellent and contains some of the best lines. The dynamic between the Doctor and Idris is funny yet heartfelt. The TARDIS has been the Doctor's one constant companion and knows him better than he probably knows himself. I love the line after the Doctor complains that the TARDIS didn't always take him where he wanted to go. Idris replies, "I always took you where you needed to go." Chills. I like seeing more of the TARDIS and Amy and Rory, even if it was mostly corridors. House messing with Amy and Rory was spooky, especially when Amy came across the walls covered in such hateful phrases aimed at her. I loved seeing the old coral desktop, a great nod to Matt's predecessors. Well, that's all I have for feedback for now. Until next week, Rachel. That's where Thieves comes from, because he stole
Doctor's
it.
wife.
Oh.
Because, that's what we did for Friday Night Who.
I gotcha. Okay.
And she didn't listen. She wasn't listening to us when we reviewed Doctor's
Right,
Wife.
she's a newer listener, so she's...
I'll allow it.
Yeah. But I'm ecstatic that she put a review in for The Doctor's Wife. That's wonderful. So I like to hear that. In fact, if we come across more that we've done that you haven't, please.
And
Rachel,
anybody who...
Yeah, anybody.
And whenever
Give us
we do a
review
repeat
Friday
and you
Night
didn't
Who.
get to send in feedback when we reviewed that story, send it on in.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear it.
Up next is Mark. Mark writes, Peter Capaldi! Peter Capaldi! Wow! You guys should rewatch The Fires of Pompeii and Torchwood Children of Earth, but review it solely on his performance. And you can talk about how you expect his doctor to be, etc. Just an idea. Anyway, that's it for the short feedback. It's 2 a.m. across the pond, and I need sleep/finish watching episode 8 of Castle. Nathan Fillion is awesome. I want a bulletproof vest saying writer. I think we should market them as traveling the Vortex product. Anyways, good night, guys.
Mark, they're actually available from ABC.
Are they?
You can't. Well, I don't imagine it's
I'm
a
sure they're not
full-blown
actually
bulletproof vest. I haven't tested mine yet.
We should get them to say podcaster.
Ooh.
No. Okay.
Glenn doesn't appreciate the reference.
The money says no.
I know the reference.
I didn't say you didn't know it. I said you didn't appreciate
I
it.
haven't got there yet.
Up next is Chrissy, though.
He poo-poos everything, Castle. Chrissy writes, Striking 12. Dear Vortex Boys, over the past few months, there's been tons and tons of speculation over the next Doctor. That's an understatement. I said it before, the speculation and arguments were driving me crazy, and I tried to stay out of it. But the only time I really took any of the speculation seriously was last Thursday, when Peter Capaldi's name popped up.
Me too.
I have no idea why his name made me pay attention. Maybe it's because it was someone I actually recognized, and the more I thought about it, the more I hoped it was true. For the past couple of days, I've kind of had my heart set on him being the Doctor, which you should never do with anything. Get your heart set on it, I mean. So as I watched the Doctor Who Live special, and I was getting more and more tense for the announcement, and I was thrilled at the announcement, and I think I scared my roommate because she came running downstairs to see what I was yelling about. Good thing she's been watching Doctor Who for the first time, and she understands why this is so important. So it was all good. Anyway, I'm as excited as can be for Peter Capaldi. Just his initial appearance on the live special and seeing how excited he was about it and the things he had to say about the show and its fans and its history. I can't wait. The best was when he said the show belongs to all of us, meaning the fans, and even including himself in that statement was wonderful. I'm eager to see what the dynamic will be like with an older, more established actor in the part and where they decide to take it. It's change, it's different, but that's what Doctor Who is all about. After the special was over, I kept up with what people were saying on Twitter. And maybe it's just the people I follow, but all I could see was praise and excitement over the announcement. No one said anything negative about Peter Capaldi as the Doctor. Now, I'm certain there are people who will find reasons to complain about the decision. People always do. But so far, that has been very minimal, which is great. I'm glad the majority of fandom has accepted the 12th Doctor into the family. I'm glad that they interviewed Matt Smith for the special, and that he was involved in some way. Even though I'm excited to get it all out for the 12th Doctor, I will still miss 11 so very much. That's what this show does to you. You say goodbye and cry and are sad, and then 10 seconds later you're enthralled with this brand new person who's just stepped into your life and captured your heart and made you laugh. It happened when David left. It's going to happen when Matt leaves. It doesn't mean that you love the one that just left any less. It means that you're invested in the character and you want to see the show succeed. Matt may be leaving, but he's leaving us in very good hands. Think about it. We have 2 more specials with Matt Smith. Peter Capaldi will come in at the tail end of Christmas, and we have until next August or September to wait for 12's first full episode. That's one thing about being a Doctor Who fan. You quickly learn to have patience. Well, we got some time before we see the 12th Doctor, so in the meantime, let's talk Big Finish.
Let's do.
Kedrodia. What I like...
Kerdroya.
I did. I put the extra D in there.
I didn't think you'd be the one to mess it up. I knew I was going to.
I worked at it because I didn't. It was one of those words that I looked at and my brain went, "That's a sci-fi word. Ignore."
Yeah,
I'm not reading that.
There's just some of these words that are in these Big Finishes that stick in my head. The other day, I was just playing Lego Lord of the Rings.
And
I had
Pedroia.
Utermizin.
Oh.
And it was stuck in my head. You ever get a word just looping in your head?
Yeah.
That's what I had. Utermizin.
Scared so.
You got that one?
I still don't pronounce it that way. It wasn't until they said it, and I stopped it. I stopped the audio play and backed it up and listened to it again so that I made sure I had it. And then I looked at it and listened to it. And I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. But for some reason, C'rizz, I look at the words, the spelling of it, and my head goes droideka. I hear Phantom Menace when I see that word. I don't know why. They send in the droidekas. They don't match for droidekas. I don't know why. C'rizz. There we go. I'm going to put a Russian accent on it. C'rizz. That makes it better. What I like about the story is that we're finally getting a little bit more background on the Divergents, not to mention some actual plot progression through the Divergent Universe.
Sadly, in the penultimate episode.
Even from the very beginning, where the Croca is taunting Charley and C'rizz. C'rizz.
Now, seeing that spelled out throws me every time.
Well, it's got an apostrophe in it. Sci-fi writers, stop. And the Doctor's asleep. You can tell this is going to be very different from the previous Divergent Universe stories, since we haven't had much in the way of actual overarching plot.
Yep.
For that reason alone, I really enjoy this one. Plus, there's the added twist of dealing with the Doctor's different personalities, which is something lots of sci-fi stories have done, though I don't know how much it's been done in Doctor Who. Not much, I don't think.
No, you get a little bit of it with the Tennant Doctor when it splits, because you get the kind of the early dark brooding Doctor, and then the more sensible modern or
and a little bit in the Neil Gaiman Cyberman, although obviously an alternate influence is causing that, but there.
Exactly.
The Next Life. I forgot how long this particular story is, and didn't leave myself enough time to listen to the whole thing.
I'll tell you, I have to jump in here and say, because when we were both on Twitter waiting for the special to start this afternoon, and she said I should take this time to start my homework, and I didn't respond to her, but I thought, oh, if you're just starting now, hon, you're not going to make it.
Who knew that Peter Jackson directed a Big Finish?
And did you, with all of the individual, because of course they break it at every half hour, you kind of feel like you're making traction, and then after you get to the 7th or 8th break, I'm going, it's the Daleks all over again.
It still felt longer.
You said it was only 6 parts, though.
But yeah, it's only 6 parts.
I swear it was 7. I swear to you,
the parts felt longer. I swear to you, I
got into the. Yeah, it wasn't half hours, by the way. I got into.
Oh no! I think
some of them were, some of them were shorter.
Yeah.
But I got in there and I got to that 7th one or that 6th one, and I swear to God, I thought, oh, this has got to be the last one because we're in the 6th one, and then it went. Oh, what the heck! All right, you finish.
Note to self: next time, don't leave it till Sunday of
a special Doctor
Who Live episode. Yeah. But it was neat to have Daphne Ashbrook in a Big Finish audio. I've also heard her and Yi Ji So in a Big Finish companion chronicle, not as Grace and Chang Li, but I have a way to make that fit in my headcanon, which I'll talk about at some other time. And if I remember right, this is the big finale to the Divergent Universe, which is a relief. It took us long enough to get there, didn't it? It is nice to get some more of C'rizz's background about the Church of the Foundation, but it feels a little rushed. They probably could have done a separate story about that in the lead-up to the story arc instead of all those filler episodes in the Divergent Universe. But, oh well, it's there, and now we're out. So, hooray. It's getting late, and I need to send this, so that's where I'll end it, and await your and everyone else's thoughts on the 12th Doctor. Chrissy.
Thank you, Chris.
Chrissy didn't have a PS here, did she? No, she didn't. Okay, good.
And we will certainly talk a little bit more about that soon. And our final piece of feedback or feedbacks
comes from Holly.
We're going to do these in reverse order, Holly, because we're going to do 12th Doctor, your reaction first, and then you'll have some reviews as well. So she writes, "Hey guys, thought I would send in another piece of feedback with the announcement of the 12th Doctor. The special was good, so very glad there were no commercials. It was nice to see Bernard Cribbins there. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Peter Capaldi brings to the role. Sorry if you got 2 emails within the same soundback for the audio stories, just sending some emails. Oh, and I don't think I
you don't
read
need
all
to read
this.
that part.
I'm blaming the Space Buffalo. No, you got to read
I
that.
do have to read that because I do remember that. I was sending an email from my phone, and it said it sent, but nothing showed up in the sent folder. I'm blaming the Space Buffalo on that one. If you ever get feedback in email about the audios, C'rizz somewhat enjoyed. We'll read that. We won't spoil
we
that.
got the detail.
Yeah, we got the
It's
detail.
Space Buffalo. I just wanted
Space
you to hear
Buffalo.
you
Yeah,
say
I
it.
forgot. When I read that, I chuckled at that she's blaming the Space Buffalo. You should always blame the Space Buffalo. In fact,
Always
it used to be Gremlins. You blame things on Gremlins. Now I'm blaming everything on Space Buffalo.
When in doubt, Space Buffalo. Why were you late to work today?
Space Buffalo.
Space Buffalo.
Don't be a Space Buffalo.
Stay in school.
All right. She also wrote earlier in the week.
Hey, where's our artist at with that? Why don't we have that yet?
136, Kerdoria, in the next life.
You stopped like you were surprised.
I was surprised that I got it out. Hey guys, great last podcast. Kerdoria. I did it twice. An interesting audio. The Doctor getting split into 3 was interesting, and I loved how Charley gave the nicknames of Tigger and Eeyore to the other 2 versions of the Doctor. Croca also needs to know that yelling and screaming at the Doctor to do something will make him less likely to do it. Not too much else to say about this one. Had to restart this one a couple of times to follow along with what was going on with the action. The Next Life. The wrap-up of this story with C'rizz and the return appearance of Rassilon. Man, talk about a schemer. Did not like Rassilon one bit. I've always been of the opinion that what the Doctor does and stands for gives the Time Lords a good name. Granted, at times, what he does might be a little on the shaky side. But Rassilon is really taking the cake and giving the Time Lords a bad name. The ending with the Doctor telling both Charley and C'rizz that they can't compete against each other was, I think, rather well timed. The 2 of them were really going at each other's throat at the time of this story, and I'm not sure if they were just like all friends/families do on certain occasions, get tired of one another. If this was from Croca and Rassilon stirring the pot. That's a good point. That actually puts a little bit of that story in perspective, which I'll talk about. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts and everyone else's on these 2 stories. Holly from Wisconsin. So, thank you, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
And we're glad that the audio got to us and the Space Buffalo did not interrupt its delivery.
Well, let's move on to our reviews. First up, Kerdoria. In self-exile, the 8th Doctor has been trying to work out the meaning of the cosmic game he has been forced to play. With the answer within his grasp, can he finally beat the Croca and get his TARDIS back?
Dun, dun, dun!
Yeah,
With an asterisk.
With an asterisk.
With an asterisk.
What's the asterisk?
This was... I loved the story. I loved the feel. I loved the performances. I loved the funny. I thought it was very, very witty, very well written. Paul McGann knocked it out of the park.
There was never a moment where I didn't know which of the personas was talking.
And never a moment where he was dull. Never a moment where he was boring. Just every word, everything got... And I don't know about you, it felt like Douglas Adams wrote it. It had moments that were that kind of manic and over the top and funny with a lot of the interpersonal play.
Yeah.
Now,
but it was very imagery wise.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
It was Douglas Adams. Comedy wise, it wasn't. It was still funny, but it didn't have the same wit.
The downfall was the story. This is the epitome of as Monty Python would say, is kind of knees bent running about and nothing happens.
You know what this is? It's a pacer.
Yeah,
this story is a pacer.
We spend 3 episodes of this literally doing nothing. Mm-hmm. We spend time in the maze, we spend time in corridors, we spend time in the clock tower, and none of it's real. All of it's made up, and we know that. We're led into that fairly early. And yet we continue to run around and do nothing and get nowhere until the very end. And it was frustrating after we've spent so much time in the Divergent Universe feeling like we're getting nowhere, to get an episode that was so enjoyable where we literally went nowhere.
Yeah.
For being so close to the end.
But I recognize the fact in the plot that they were just running around getting nowhere, but it almost felt like it wasn't until the end when I stopped and looked and thought, oh, we didn't really go anywhere. Mm-hmm. During the ride, it felt like we were getting someplace because we're going towards the TARDIS. We're dealing with the Croca.
Yeah. Fortunately, it's a short. This is probably one of the shorter Big Finish stories. It was like 125 or something like that. It was nothing at all. which is great when you have 2 stories and one of them's 3 hours. But no, here's the thing I had about this is I was actually very forgiving at the fact that there was a lot of running around doing nothing, because the acting, as you said, was superb. The performances were wonderful. It was enjoyable to hear. A lot of the dialogue was great.
Exploring more things.
But what made me forgive it even more, and then really stabbed me in the back, was I felt like we were getting the base of what Croca was, and what he was doing, and we were unraveling the mystery, and then sadly we're left at the end with even more mystery. We don't know anything about Croca. Everything that we have said here was deduced by the Doctor is not what it really is. Now, there's a little bit of that there, but so the things that we felt we were being unlocked about the character really weren't.
Yeah,
that was just kind of all thrown out. But it was that hope, or at least I was perceiving that's where we were going with it, was that I was fine with everything else that was going on, because I thought, well, this is just a character study in the particular character in the stories that we have known little about. The Doctor has let on that he has figured it out, but he still hasn't shared much of it with us. So I enjoyed learning more about Croca, and I enjoyed this story. I didn't hate it, even though we're going nowhere. It was just, it was a fun romp. It's really it was.
Yeah, it was. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for those. You guys know me. I love fun romps. I'm all for fun. Hey, this one makes no sense. Great, bring it on. I'm ready. But for the penultimate, there's Keith's favorite word, episode in this, very long, drawn-out Divergent Universe arc, I expected better.
Yeah.
Or not better, but different. I don't know. The Divergent Universe has had me on my heels since episode 1, and I haven't quite been prepared for anything they've thrown at me. So maybe it's just par for the course. I can't say enough good about the episode because I loved it. Mm-hmm. I had such a fun time listening to it, but we didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought we were going somewhere. I wanted to go somewhere, and we didn't go anywhere.
You know what I enjoyed most about this is it fixed something that I've had a problem with. And I think it started just before we went into the Divergent Universe, but it's been at its absolute worst, is the unevenness of the Eighth Doctor, of the character of the Eighth Doctor.
Because especially once there's a Grey stuff, he goes so dark.
Yeah, I have felt the character's been very uneven from story to story. And what this did is it split the Doctor into 3 characters, and all of these characters are personalities of the Doctor we've been dealing with, especially in the Divergent Universe.
Yeah.
And I went, wow, whoever wrote this, and I wish I had it pulled up right now, they did a nice job of...
Lloyd Rose.
Even if it was accidentally fixing some of the issues I had with the inconsistency with the writing of the other stories. And that totally fixed it for me and was just a wonderful aspect of it. Not only did McGann play each of the characters, the personalities, wonderfully, but that just fixed a lot of things that have been wrong with me and kind of set me off foot in the Divergent Universe as far as the character of the Doctor. And I loved that. I thought it was fantastic.
This is the only Big Finish he's written.
Well, what was his name?
Her name.
Oh,
Lloyd Rose.
Lloyd? Good. Nice job. Thank you very much.
And according to the TARDIS Wikia, as of 2013, this episode had the distinction of being the only full-length piece of performed Doctor Who to be written by an American woman.
Oh, wow.
Bravo, we say.
Yeah.
Well, good job, Lloyd. Love it. All right.
It was refreshing to hear Charley. Back to Charley.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was very Charley in there.
Because we've had some not so much Charley in the last couple, it's kind of felt like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I felt very strongly that I liked the fact that she was back to her roots, so to speak, and just being, and even Mel commented on it. And she says, I've really missed listening to Charley, even though she's heard most of these other ones. It's almost like Charley wasn't in them.
Yeah, it was almost like it was somebody else.
I was a little worried when they split the Doctor into his 3 component selves and realized how Paul McGann heavy the story was going to become. There was a moment where I kind of thought, wow, I hope this works still, and it did beautifully.
Yeah. Well, splitting them up for a while too helped.
Yeah.
Having
Sending
Charley
them
go
off in
off with
different
the Broding
directions.
one, and C'rizz go off with Tigger, and then
which that was such a nice balance of
Right.
the characters.
right. Agreed.
That was the Douglas Adams
Except
moment.
for-
The monster that chased him, and C'rizz
Well, that's
wouldn't
what I
let him
was saying.
turn around.
Visually,
Yes.
that was
When he's
And
he's
the
like,
giant rabbit.
What does it look like? Well, just keep running.
You're
Does it
better
have,
off not knowing.
does it have feet?
It's
No.
hard to describe.
And he just would never pin it down.
Yeah.
I love that so much. That was just top marks. I love that.
Well, and in the sense of splitting them off, it would have been writing wise and character wise, it would have been so much easier to send Charley off with the Tigger Doctor and C'rizz off with the Brooding Doctor,
Yes.
because they're really kind of, that's their personality.
Yeah.
But by splitting them the
By
other way,
going the opposite direction.
you had that dynamic.
It balanced
it really kind of did.
Well, and it showcased. I kept flashing back to the movie because the Tigger Doctor is very much, these shoes, they fit wonderfully,
Yes.
and he goes running off. That's
Yes.
his thing.
Yes.
And the Eeyore Doctor's a little bit more of the
darker that we've had in the audio, the grayness.
And how phenomenally serendipitous, maybe it's just me, that we get to that moment where he corners Croca, and Croca's boasting and doing his thing, and you won't hurt me, you're the doctor, your reputation precedes you, blah, 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 blah. And he's monologuing, and the doctor goes, which part am I?
Yeah.
You've got the other one, the idiot, locked up over here, and you've got this one. They keep me in check. Knowing that we're going into Name of the Doctor type stuff, I was like, yeah.
And I flashed also to Eccleston and how that part of him is now more on the surface with Eccleston and getting pushed down.
Yeah.
So it's
We're
nice
suppressing that
foreshadowing
darkness again,
almost
yeah.
when this was written
Yeah,
before
it's-
of that came
So
out.
before any of that, but just
Well, not
fits. So I'm so glad this
too
one
far.
wound up coming in right when it did.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
November 2005 or 4 was when it was released.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to wrap this up because the show was coming back.
Right. The other thing I thought was very clever was every time I heard Croak, I kept thinking of Frog, and it's wonderful that he says, "I finally get to see you," and he says, "Oh, I imagined you looking like a large frog." I thought, so did I.
But they never described what he
No,
looked
they
like.
didn't. But I appreciated the fact that it wasn't a large frog, and he says, "I pictured you as a large frog," and I thought, "Oh, well, so did I." Good, you're not.
And
Anthropomorphized
No more,
animals in this one.
and I
Even
love
in my
that-
Big Finish.
I love that the Doctor and his relationship with Croca was so.
It's fun for the Doctor to finally have the upper hand.
It's
It
Kirk
is.
kicking. What's his name? Christopher Lloyd in the face.
Yeah.
I have had enough of you.
Of you.
When he locks him in his mind, and he's just toying with him. A bit of cheese. Sorry, I don't normally invite people over. He's still being the Doctor, but he's the Doctor. He's the great powerful Oz here. Don't mess with me, man.
How did you survive? How did the mind blast not affect you? That's more like a mind bump or something. That's chiding Croak. That's so good.
I've been subjected to mind probes, and and I thought of Pertwee on the table when the Daleks were scanning him, and brain drains, and just on and on and on.
And the everlasting match that doesn't really last.
that
was a nice bit.
I loved the Everlift.
And then the fact that they call back to it again later.
Yeah. So what do you got? I got a candle holder. Well, that would have been good. So many good moments, and
It's
again,
fun.
the
It's a
chemistry,
fun story.
the chemistry between all these characters worked so well because it didn't matter if it was the Doctor and Croca or the Doctor and Charley or the Doctor and C'rizz. Everybody had that moment, and then later when Charley and C'rizz are put together, and I really got, and maybe it's because we finally got what I kind of consider to be my Charley back. How well they play off of each other. They have fantastic chemistry together.
I would agree.
I really, really, really liked the story. Even though we didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
I
I
really
did
liked
too.
the
I
story.
enjoyed not going anywhere though. So if you can do that,
Well, and maybe that's it. If you hadn't dangled that carrot of we're almost at the end of this, and we just had this we're not going anywhere.
Right.
This is just a day in
It's
the
a
life.
pacer.
I'd
That's
have
really
been
what it is.
I'd have been
It's a
fine
pacer
with
story
it.
to get us to the end without really doing anything.
It's just the way to get them back to the TARDIS, really,
pretty
more
much.
than anything else.
That was the nice thing too. Is
there was a payoff, at least.
Another wonderful moment is the fact when they show up and they at the TARDIS. That was so great. Well, when he figures out, they're actually, does he know that he's trying to get us to break into my TARDIS, into our own TARDIS? And he's like, I guess I don't think he does. That was just kind of that funny moment of he's having us break into our TARDIS. Just, okay. That was great. And then at the end, when they actually,
we didn't prepare you. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's bigger on the inside.
By the way.
Well, I like the interchange at the beginning when the doctors say goodbye to C'rizz and they're like, they're confused, like what? And then, of course, as they walk in, and then it's just the doctor. He's rejoined. And I like the aspect of the fact that it was the TARDIS that's splitting in three. That was cool to get him through the inner zone there. Yeah. That was neat.
I love
great idea.
Yeah, and really was.
He had, in order to communicate, had to spread out the kind of triangulate
to send the message.
Yeah, exactly. To send that message.
I love the bit in the inner zone too, where he's so dismissive of Croca, he's asleep.
Yeah.
And Charley C'rizz is like,
and Charley is actually the one figuring out, and C'rizz kind of jumps on as well, but Charley's the one figuring out that while they're in the inner zone, if the doctor's sleeping, then they don't.
They can't go anywhere.
Exactly, they can't go anywhere. I loved that.
Now, one little bitty nitpicky complaint about the ending with the TARDIS. Didn't the TARDIS effectively die when we got to the Divergent Universe? Didn't all the power, everything go, and she shut down, the doors opened, kicked them out, and then disappeared?
Because they had to decide whether to leave. It kind of shut down, but I got the impression that was because of, now in hindsight, because of the experiments and where she landed, that it was kind of the Croca pushing them out.
Okay.
Yes.
And his influence on the TARDIS.
Because remember, the TARDIS then leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it has some sort of power
it didn't like where it landed.
Well, it was the Hads.
Yes.
Yes.
So it was getting itself out of danger.
Okay, but I kind of when he jumped back in and we're finally at home in the TARDIS,
and it's taken so long to get there,
and it's taken so long to get there, and then all of a sudden it's just everything powers up and we dematerialize and we get that moment of that feels good.
Well, that's when they start.
I was kind of like,
that's when they start playing with the whole idea that there is some sort of time energy and time element here as well, even though this is a universe devoid of time
in the interzone too. But that was more tracking the TARDIS.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying though. Is that because so that gave me an indication that it wasn't necessarily everything it seemed from the beginning. And as Keith said, that's when I sort of thought the same thing, is that Croca was had pushed them out initially in order to take the TARDIS, or ultimately wrestle him to take the TARDIS.
And was it at the end of this one or the beginning of the next one where they're talking about, well, yes, we have the TARDIS, we can go anywhere in this universe, but not any when.
Yes, they did.
So they still they have that issue.
We can travel anywhere in space, just not in time.
And and from that part also, it almost gives the impression of, because of the time aspect, that's why the TARDIS was acting as weird as it was when it landed.
She probably
that's how I can fix
I hadn't thought of that.
I'm sure she went through it just like the Doctor losing a limb. The TARDIS, who lives in the Vortex, probably went, So
it's probably even worse for the TARDIS.
It's got to be.
Well, and you'd sort of assume that's why she had such a hard. She couldn't get that signal to him directly. Yeah. So by splitting him and being able to kind of spread that signal out, that makes that make more sense as well, because nothing's linear here as well. So I like that.
A nice little bit of serendipity as well that we watched The Doctor's Wife for Friday Night Who this episode with her sending the pretty one telepathic messages.
Yes. Although we did go through Zagreus where the TARDIS was acting quite. Of course, that was affected by the anti-time. But where the TARDIS went through this very dark.
She can be forgiven.
Interchange with the Doctor.
She can be forgiven for that.
I still think it was a sickness. I think it was just being affected by the anti-time. All right.
Let's move on to the next slide.
Ultimately, it was really Zagreus too, because we'll get to that as well. Because that was really an interesting twist for me.
That's where this kind of took its turn for the better.
Well, I
I
don't know
think.
if it was for the better, but yeah.
For the more interesting.
Let's
Okay,
delve
let's
into
go.
this
Let's get
one
into
because I'm hot and cold on this one.
Washed up on a beach on a beautiful island, the Eighth Doctor is rescued by a strangely familiar woman named Perfection and begins the journey to discover the dark secret at the end of his exile to the Divergent Universe and the return of an old enemy that could hold the key to its end.
Anyone?
He's hot and cold.
I'm hot and cold on this one.
I am too.
I can't done it, but I wouldn't give it a horn.
Yeah, I am too.
This one's almost too long for its own good.
I agree, because we spend so much time tromping around the jungle and explaining what the history of everything. While the history is interesting, I think we could have delved that history out throughout the entire Divergent storyline.
That's what I think Chrissy pointed out too.
And that's where those would have been less filler. We would have learned these things. We could have showed up on the island. Rassilon's there with Croca and Keep and Perfection, and then had this big battle towards whatever, to the gateway to what it was there.
There were parts of it that during that where they're jumping back and forth and everybody's explaining a little different backstory.
That was neat.
That was
very
very
well done.
It was very well
so
done.
well
Yes.
done, and that was very cool. And I almost, even though that was the info dump episode, because it felt like that was a whole episode.
Yeah.
It was an info dump.
And it was info dump. I almost felt like that was the best part of it.
Mm-hmm. They did a really, really nice job with an info dump, and most info dumps are just very, okay, here it is.
There it is. Here
I'll
it
lay
comes.
it out, and it's pretty standard and dry. But this was done in such a clever way that you were just you were captivated by how it was being told,
and it was a great story. This one very much felt like it borrowed a lot.
Well, here's the problem, though. Going back, we spend so much time with C'rizz and Charley hooked up to the
Yeah. There's a whole part before they even get to the island.
The little Dreamweavers.
The Dreamweavers,
Yeah.
And which we do.
Did you get it? Did you see what we did
The
there?
person, and the person that C'rizz connects to is his dead wife, his dead wife initially, and Charley connects to her mother, and that becomes the apparitions that kind of. And we go through this whole idea of them exploring basically their own characters and how everything is developed and how they kind of fit into everything that's gone on so far, only to come down to the fact that it's Rassilon and Croca basically just manipulating the situation so that one or the other or both hopefully will turn on the Doctor.
Yeah.
So we go through this whole mess of we're going to explore some idea and some rationale as to why they went this way and how the characters developed throughout this entire story, and they're kind of looking back and dealing with where they've come from point A to point Z, and then there's now we've woke up.
Z.
Oh, did I say Z?
You said Z.
Okay. Sorry.
You're American. I'm sorry.
That's the Anglo-Saxon coming out.
I have to blow the shenanigans horn.
Anyway, A to Z, and but so it's like we're building this wonderful story and this exploration of character, and then we dump into it was just really kind of. It was being manipulated as we went along.
The only plus side is it continues with.
Then we unhook them from the machines, and we're done with all that.
Well, I don't know. We're done with that with Charley, but it seemed like we continued that with C'rizz because of him meeting his father and the exploration of the foundation.
But here's
and all
the problem.
of that stuff.
But then we get into a different issue because he still has the character of C'rizz that's been building in the sense that when he figures out that it isn't really his wife, that there's no. C'rizz turns into a completely different character halfway through this, and that's where I have a problem with it.
I think that's where they should.
Because yes, if you're going to utilize one or the other, you utilize C'rizz to be the one that is the traitor on the Doctor, but his motivations become very robotic, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is that he goes clear back? He almost slides too far back.
Well,
even beyond the C'rizz we know.
See, and I thought that was interesting, but it didn't seem to fit in this story.
It doesn't.
It should have been a separate story in and of itself.
I think
it should have been done earlier.
I think maybe that was
and
the
then
deal.
He disappears for an exploration, and then shows up with his dad on this island also.
As C'rizz has gone along, he shows up, and we get this dollop of who this guy is.
Yes.
And the darkness
and
that is
it.
in his past.
And that's it. And then all of a sudden he's a companion, and he's along for the ride, and he does all the knees-bit walking about with them through the rest of the Divergent
And
Universe.
we try to go somewhere with the whole having that, when they go to
in the faith place.
the faith zone, and he has that where he almost tries to kill Charlie.
And there's an inkling of it, but not much.
Not enough.
So now we get to this, and we finally get C'rizz's backstory. We find out that he was more than a priest, or a monk, whatever they called him. That he was, and that the religion that they have is that everybody should be dead.
Yeah.
Let's kill everybody. And he was good at it, and it's like, whoa. And and they gave us all this fantastic backstory on C'rizz, and I was so excited. And then he meets his dad, who's that was a huge revelation. But Rassilon's already turned him.
Yeah.
And it became very villain of the week now.
Right, exactly.
And worse.
That's exactly right.
They turned him into Turlo.
Yeah, that's
true.
what it felt.
Yeah,
it
we've
felt
already
very,
had this.
it felt very Turlo, and that's the problem is because we went from, we almost did a reverse Turlo, where we had this almost faithful companion turned into this guy that's ready to, kill the Doctor, which makes the end of this even worse because he does nothing to redeem himself. Turlo redeems himself.
Yeah,
It's true.
C'rizz does nothing to redeem himself, and then suddenly we're ready to have him back as a companion again. And that did not set well with me at all.
Yeah.
And the whole exchange between Charlie and C'rizz and the Doctor on the one saying, you guys have to get along here. I was saying, screw you, Doctor, she's right. He needs to be booted out of this TARDIS because he turned his back on you.
side.
He was ready to sell you out to get his old life back, and he has no remorse and no redemption for it. And you're ready to take him into our universe with you?
The weird thing
They
is
better be setting something else up.
the weird thing is that it was almost not even for the Doctor just kind of assumes that it was for his old life back, and Rassilon backs it up. But more than anything, it was just C'rizz didn't want Charlie to find out that he had this checkered past.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was his motivation. It was like, that's it? You think you guys aren't close enough by now that she'd be like, that
She
was
knows you killed your wife.
Yeah, she forgives you and she's helping you work through the fact that you're having issues with the fact that
She
you killed your
forgives
wife.
the fact that you tried to kill her twice.
Kill her, exactly.
Yeah. And
so it's
the
just,
fact that you've killed a lot of people, you're all of a sudden worried about.
That did
and
not
I can't,
set well
I
with
can't
me
help but
at all.
wonder if his motivations for doing that. Do you think C'rizz maybe is in love with Charlie a little bit?
I could see that.
I mean, is it
But
more
they-
than just
they have
I don't want her to
such
think bad of me? Is it?
They have
is
such
it,
a brother-sister almost kind of
Well,
Well,
relationship.
that's
do.
just
That's
it.
why
That's why
I don't-
I
that's why I
I'm
can't
having
see that.
Yeah, well, that's what
Well, then
I'm,
again,
I'm
I
reaching.
think the
I'm
Doctor
trying to
and
find a
Charlie have the
justification.
brother-sister relationship, and other people don't seem to think that.
well, no, they
Charlie
didn't.
but
Well, Charlie didn't.
Well, I don't even think the Doctor did.
I don't think
at
the Doctor
beginning.
did.
I think we had the brother sister. I think he was. I think they explored that love aspect.
Very best
there.
of friends.
Well, they explored that. There's more than just best friends aspect there. But then they've realized that it can't be any more than what it is. Is what's
So
happening.
they've backed off. Of
Yes,
it.
yeah.
And now it's brother
And
sister.
it's addressed by Charlie in this story as well. She says,
Oh, both of them talk about
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. They did.
So, and it's interesting too that also in Turlo fashion, we didn't get Turlo's backstory until the very last, episode
Yeah.
with him. I mean, this isn't the last episode with C'rizz, but it felt.
It
I don't know.
essentially is, because it's the last of his universe.
It's the last of his universe. And just there was so much there that I wanted to like that it was like, this is fantastic, but where are you going with it? And then they got to where they went with it, and it was like, that was all we got. I don't know.
Well, that's where you get warm on this again, because, like I said, I get hot and cold on this story, because then I really was fascinated, even though it's a borrowed idea, I was really fascinated with the fact that Rassilon had kind of started this, cycle that's going on here.
Yeah.
And
that was-
ultimately, he pulled the Doctor in so that he could get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, because, it's like, well, I'm here, I'll make the best of it. And so he creates this cyclical universe, and he is trying to use the Doctor then to get out. And so it's a little different on this time around. But then it's like, what a fascinating idea, but it's like then they don't really explain more upon what's going on, because now we've also got the C'rizz character, which is fantastic, that has been hiding as perfection, and you're not let on at that at all.
Oh, no
so
way.
I loved the idea that surfaces.
I knew there was something not right with it.
I knew there was something not right,
And
but I
we've
couldn't tell what
got
it was.
Yeah.
the French guy, which was not French until the end, and then was, and they tried to explain that, and it was weird. But
it seemed weird. I did not pick up initially. I thought it was
what was the guy?
Keep.
Then we've got Keep, who's this other aspect, and we find out that he's this. Basically, he just absorbs everything.
He's the
done
thing from the first story.
Yeah, he's done.
From C'rizz.
Exactly. He's ready to go into this. So he's also going to use the Doctor in order to get to this, the door to get to this other universe where he can then, absorb there. And
it was too many ideas.
Keep ahead. I liked the idea that they went back to the first story with Keep. But it just felt so forced the entire time.
That was the lovely moment was when Rassilon and Crota get dumped into the beginning
that
of
was
this
nice.
thing, and the dialogue is almost word for word on a lot of that. And I thought that was neat. That was a neat little touch to do that and put them in the situation that Charlie and the Doctor were in.
Did you
originally?
Keith can't attest to this. Glenn, did you get a little bit of a Dark Tower feel with these two stories? Just
a little
with
bit.
Kedroia,
I can
the
see
idea
it.
of the castle that rotates to
yes.
face all the lands,
Yes.
and that because of all roads converge there, and this idea of this cylindrical universe that everything's
on a spoke to this one point.
Point.
I could see that.
I wonder maybe if that's not where they were drawing some of their inspiration from to try and pull something like that off.
Could be,
but
it didn't work so well.
Sure didn't make it.
But maybe that's my problem with it, is that it was done pretty well in the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
The concept works really well. This one, it just if I could have forgiven C'rizz if I didn't feel that there were too many storylines going on here.
I think that's where this.
I wouldn't have been bothered less by it.
That's where this story falls down. It's juggling too much, and it's too hard to keep track of everything that's going on.
And it's almost like we had to do 3 hours of story in order to. No, let's trim it down and let's streamline it a little bit. If you want to go with the Foundation story, let's go with the Foundation story. If you want to, it's like we threw everything in it just to try to wrap things up, to explain where we came from C'rizz, to wrap up the Zagreus idea, which I'm glad they did all of it. I just wish they hadn't done it all here.
Now, are we complaining because they did a poor job of wrapping up all these other ideas? Or is it because they had all these other ideas out there and initially would have gone in a longer... We would have got more stories for this to play out had it not been for New Who coming back.
Well, that could be.
I think they should have considered that and put more of this stuff early on.
Well, but they may not have known that. They may the Divergent, instead of being, I don't know what it is, 8 episodes, maybe they were planning on doing 14.
But then we would have complained about the 6
which would have been
that were just filler, and then
6 more than and that's 6 more that the 6th Doctor got. Trial of Time season.
But yeah, I agree with you.
I think they needed to delve it out more evenly, regardless.
It feels a little like Revenge of the Sith. We've got too much in the final episode.
I think his point
is
that maybe that was the plan.
Yeah,
to stretch out what was in this 3 hours, but decided, well, we got to get them out of the Divergent Universe now because the new series is coming back, and so we just threw everything into the pot and made stew. I don't hate this story.
No, I don't hate the story either, but it felt like it borrowed a lot. It just felt like the guy playing Rassilon, who he played Rassilon prior. What was his name? Don Warrington did a great job. Anybody else think he was channeling Orson Welles?
Yeah, I mean,
I totally went Orson Welles with it.
He did an okay job, but it felt like the mustache twirling villain is really what
it's the way it was written more than anything else, because the Rassilon we've experienced beforehand was nothing like this Rassilon.
Yes. Now, admittedly, he's been stuck here for a while.
He was essentially being the master.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And
that's not what I expect from Rassilon.
The whole jungle hunt bit.
Should we call him Masterlon?
Masterlon.
The whole jungle hunt bit, the whole time I'm going, Octopussy.
Yeah.
This is a James Bond plot.
Yeah.
They got guys on horses with guns, and our hero is running. Okay, it's a James Bond story here. Perfection. When she kept
Daphne, you did a wonderful job, though.
Yeah, when she kept coming on to the Doctor in the jungle. That was my first tip-off, and I feel bad, I didn't know she was in this.
Yeah.
And so all the way
Well, none of
through
us did. We just knew we heard a familiar voice.
We heard this familiar voice, and it wasn't until about the halfway point where I finally broke down and looked her up and went, "Oh my God!" And now, of course, how genius do we look? We've had her on the show. Didn't know she was in Doctor Who.
Well, we knew she had done Big Finish.
Yeah.
We just hadn't got to anything she had done yet.
Didn't know she did this one.
Yeah, we just didn't realize which story it was.
This one, is interesting as a note, is that this is the first time that Paul McGann and Daphne Ashbrook had worked together since Doctor Who the movie. Mm-hmm. And this is the final audio drama with Paul McGann as the quote-unquote incumbent Doctor. Because after this one came out from Big Finish, we had both Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant appear on TV before Paul McGann came back to Big Finish.
So there was about 2 years.
So there was a little bit of a gap there.
Wow.
So he'd been, he wasn't the current Doctor. This was the last one with him as the current
Doctor.
And
that's the reason they rushed out of the Divergent Universe, was to get him back into, because it was very unclear where we were going and what was going to happen with the Big Finish license, and what where we were going to go with this, and what we could do with the Eighth Doctor, because they didn't know what was coming with the Ninth Doctor.
Hey, I got one word for you: cliffhanger.
So they pushed him.
Just leave it.
We're so happy to see Daleks.
They pushed him out of the Divergent Universe, so there was no question as to how he got back, but then couldn't go anywhere else from there. So that totally makes sense. I didn't realize that it had been more than a year that they waited before they brought Paul back in. But
the next one he did was released in August of 2005. This one was 2004, but again, by that time, all of Christopher Eccleston's stories had aired, and now David Tennant was on. So, how do you feel about the ending? Other than C'rizz, the actual.
It wrapped up pretty quick.
We got into the Foundry. We kind of justified the weird religious existentialism of we've just corrupted that word. It's like, all right, allow it. And we've kind of done this, and Rassilon's off in the TARDIS, and then somehow
Keep in perfection, end up back together to start this whole process again.
Well,
but they can't get out. Is my thought.
I found it fitting the cyclical nature of it, of the universe.
It didn't work.
It's going to restart regardless. So,
and it's not like they can get out now, because they needed a doctor. They needed somebody to cross over in order to be the vehicle to get out.
I did think Rassilon and Kroko were dispatched a little too easily.
Yeah, agreed.
But I liked the fact that they wound up, as you said.
In the Scherzo situation.
It's like, haha, deal with it.
How do we feel about the explanation that we got for what the Doctor went through of the experiments? That the confirmation that yes, these were experiments, and that they were pulled out different sections of the worlds in order to preserve them. Do we like that, or
I'm fine with it?
It's kind of what we expected.
That's kind of where. Once I realized they were going there, I didn't have a problem with the weird, mind blowing story, and then the classic Who story, and then the just how we did that up and down. I didn't have a problem. That worked for me all along, presuming that was what was happening. This justifying that actually worked for me, so I was glad for that.
The Pocket Universe, the Divergent Universe here, it was already here, right? It's not like Rassilon created.
Well, that's the problem.
I know he said they don't
Rassilon.
That.
Well, that's just it. Rassilon was somehow pulled into it. The Divergent Universe was created by the Time Lords. Because when they were dissolving,
they were
sending people elsewhere. That's where they were going, and so my impression, that's what sort of happened, was they were sent to that Divergent Universe.
But Rassilon found them because he had the theory that they had to go somewhere,
right? And so he went to find them, and that's when he got there. Now, when he got there, I get the impression it's kind of a biblical God version where there's something there, but he kind of molds it, because he talks about the Foundry. That was the
according
Foundry.
to the TARDIS Wiki description of the Divergent Universe, Rassilon installed a Mobius loop, which took all life of that universe once every 20 to 30 millennia before regurgitating the universe in its original form.
So Rassilon puts everything in motion.
So then
we don't know how he does that.
Do we think?
Well, he got there and built a Foundry and created.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Do we think he got there and built the Foundry, or was it when he was experimenting with how to get to that universe that there was the force bubble went off and took the foundry with him.
Oh, that's possible.
And it actually is his foundry, and everything was thrown into that universe.
Possibly.
I mean,
then why didn't he build
millenniums.
Then why didn't he build himself his new TARDIS? I guess because he wasn't at the foundry.
There's no time.
Well,
it's
but that's the thing. According to this, a side effect was the lack of time as a linear concept. Was a side effect of the loop. That's what this is.
That would explain why. Okay, so that explains why everybody has that kind of concept of time in a universe that doesn't have time.
And the closer you get to the foundry, the more element of time.
But that doesn't jive with what we know when he got sent to the universe, because the whole idea of this universe, even going into it, why he went exploring it, is there is no time.
Well,
because it's the anti-time.
But that's all suspected.
That's all suspected.
The anti-time thing ends up being a ruse in the end, and that was the reason. Zagreus is who tricked him into going into the place in the first place. Yeah. It was Zagreus was trying to get in, Rassilon's trying to get out, and ends up, that ends up becoming a conflict there in itself. So him getting in and the whole anti-time. And the whole, antimatter, or no, it was anti-time. The whole anti-time thing was really kind of a ruse by Zagreus to get him to go in there. That's why he goes in the first place, because he thinks he has explored all this anti-time, and the only place he can go is go there where the anti-time is, because it's unstable here. But we find out later, because remember, even up until the very end, the Doctor's still saying, I can't go back because I have all this anti-time. And Charlie's trying to say, no, that was Rassilon is telling us that you don't, that's all a ruse. It's really, but of course he's trying to spin it so that he thinks that the Doctor lied to them about the anti-time. Right. The Doctor thinks that Rassilon's lying about the anti-time. And ultimately, there's no anti-time because Zagreus used the excuse to get into the Divergent Universe.
That's okay. Yeah, that makes more sense now.
So, it's a wonderful concept, and it wraps up a lot of great stuff. It just really kind of there at the end. It's letting the air out of the balloon right there at the end, and then that's it.
In retrospect, and I said this before, that to have such a mind-blowing story to open this and then fall back into the typical Doctor Who monster of the week, and I was disappointed, and I hoped that we'd get something at the end that helped wrap all this up. I don't think we did.
I don't think we got.
I
we didn't
get a scare.
So we didn't even get a. What was the other one we thought was pretty cerebral?
The one I really liked.
The Light City. What was the name of the Light City one?
Yeah, where they weren't really actually there. That the people had taken on the personas
the editors.
Yes.
What was that one?
My computer would move quicker.
That's
Natural History of Fear.
Maybe that's part. That was it. I think. Yeah.
You have the book.
Oh yeah. I do.
No.
Why am I trying to get Wikied up?
Twilight Kingdom. I think. No, it isn't.
Pretty sure it was Natural History of Fear because it didn't make sense until after.
It doesn't really matter. But anyway,
yes, it does.
The idea of it is maybe that's why there's the letdown is because it's really just kind of a bait and switch situation with Rassilon and Zagreus and Keep and all of this stuff that's going on. Maybe that's the problem. Let's see. Faith Stealer was the.
That was the one with the planet full of churches.
The last was the one with.
Yeah, it's Natural History of Fear because the description is it is a criminal offense to copy or attempt to copy.
That's it.
Okay,
that's it.
So yeah, with the outstanding nature of that one, and then the idea that we're stuck in this loop and that we are evolving as we go, and that each society that we land in apparently is a little bit further along the loop, and so it's a little more advanced, even kind of works, but. Yeah. I would have.
I see where they're going with it.
Yeah, I would have really liked to have had a little bit more story spread out into these, a little more hints dropped, a little more plot, instead of the standard. Yeah, we're going to go off and do this planet with.
If you're going to do a story arc, you need a better outline.
Yeah. This felt more. Dare I say, this felt more key to time and less Trial of a Time Lord.
Agreed.
But not as good. I'm just glad to be out of the Divergent Universe. I'm happy.
Me too.
Happy to be home.
Quite honestly.
I hope that we can
And
get
I am glad
C'rizz
that
redeemed.
C'rizz.
I hope they're
'cause
set
I've liked the
something up
character so
because
far.
the Doctor's trusting him way too much. Which, yeah, it's kind of the Doctor's nature, but we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right. Anything else you guys need to touch on before we move on and end this one possibly under 2 hours?
We talked about it less
Sean
time
will-
it took to listen to it.
Sean will try to force the issue to because he likes to get us
How
over
close
2
are we?
hours.
155. Oh, I can talk for another 5 minutes. So that scene where that thing happened.
What's coming up next week on the schedule?
Next week on the schedule, we've got Dragonfire as part of our 7th Doctor celebrations. With being the 8th month, we're in the 7th Doctor, so we'll get Sylvester.
Even though we
McCoy.
did some 8th.
Even though we did a little bit 8th, but I wanted to get out of the Divergent Universe.
So we can do
Like Big Finish rushing it to get him out of there, I wanted to rush to get out of there. So that's my justification for that. So we've got Dragonfire on Friday Night Who. We'll get the introduction of Ace, the departure of Mel. And Keith will now have seen all of Mel's stories.
No, he hasn't seen Paradise Towers.
Or no, except for Paradise Towers. I keep forgetting that one's stuck in the middle there. So never mind. You won't see all of them. And then next week on the show, on the big 137 Epiversary, we will do the... What?
It doesn't work that way.
Sure it does.
No.
Oh, wait. Last minute feedback.
Oh, wait.
Oh, last minute
Who sent
feedback.
us last minute
Scott from Philly.
feedback? Oh, Scott.
Scott, we forgot Scott from Philly.
He commented on our post about the next Doctor.
Oh.
He says, "Yay, love the pick. An excellent actor who can do the comedy and tragedy of being the Doctor requires. No more Doctor companion romance. At the same time, I'd buy a connection between him and River, if he's the one who gives River her sonic screwdriver. Waiting on BBC America rerunning Children of Earth and the memes of the Doctor destroying the Daleks with prolific profanities."
I don't know. See, now, because what'll happen is we'll get JLC out of the way, and they'll bring in Evelyn to travel with them.
She's
Doctor.
not JLC anymore, you know that, right? She's just JC.
She's not Jenna Louise Coleman?
Nope,
She's
she's
Jenna
Jenna Coleman.
When did that happen?
I don't know,
A couple months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
On-screen titles, too? Credits?
Well, no, we got up to the end of Name of the Doctor,
But-
and they were on there, but
After
after
that-
that, she
After that,
said she's just Jenna Coleman.
Just Jenna Coleman.
Yep.
I don't like it.
I'm surprised you hadn't heard that. I don't know why
Did
you.
we discuss
I don't know
it,
how
Liz?
you can just decide after a full season of, or even several
This
years of
long,
acting, and
yeah.
go, "I'm just Jenna
Some
Coleman."
people do it.
Siddig Al-Fadil, who played Dr. Bashir on Deep Space Nine, 4 seasons into Deep Space Nine, decided he was now going to be known as Alexander Siddig, and they changed the credit sequence.
Yeah, I knew that.
You did know that?
Yeah.
Did you know that
was his? I didn't realize that.
Did you know that he's Malcolm McDowell's nephew?
That I did not know.
Real life.
No. I'm gonna-
Dr. Bashir is related
Where were
to
we?
Sauron.
We were talking about the schedule.
So then next week on the
Thanks, Scott, for getting us over 2 hours.
137 Epiversary episode.
Can't go with that.
Why not?
Oh, we've been there before.
Have we?
Deja vu.
Have we done 137? Gesundheit.
No, we've done the anniversary.
You can have more than one Epiversary.
Every week is an epiversary.
Goofy?
Commence the
No,
beating of
every
the
week
horse.
is a merry unepiversary.
What's coming up on 157?
137.
That's what I said.
We're going to do the IDW comic book, Prisoners of Time 7,
Yeah.
which I've read. So I'm ahead of the
You're
I'm
ahead of me then.
ahead of the homework
You're
now.
rarely ahead of me.
And I liked it, and I will discuss it next week. We will talk Dragonfire, and then we're also going to talk the Big Finish Audio Go Destiny of the Doctor 7. What's the name of this one?
Shockwave.
Shockwave. And so that's up there. And then the following week, we get the Sontaran Experiment with Tom Baker for Friday Night Who, just to give us a little taste of Sarah Jane, because the following week, in Epiversary 138, we're going to talk Sarah Jane Adventures Season 4. So you might want to start on that now, kids, so that you've got enough time. Not that it's a long season. Right. Of course, they're all 2-part episodes and you know whatnot, but just so that you can start now, you got 2 weeks from today. Sarah Jane Season 4. And then you might want to put some money aside if you're not, actively spending it buying gifts for a certain trio of podcasters at the Doctor Who Experience in Cardiff. Like how I threw that out there. Because The Green Death with John Pertwee is next, and that will be coming out in the special edition format in North America the week of the 20th.
So some of you may already have it.
Some of you may already have it.
Yes.
I already own it, but the special edition is coming out, so if you don't own it...
That's one on Netflix.
It is on Netflix.
And it's also on Netflix, so if you don't own it, you
although
might
it
want to
might
put some
fall
money
off
aside.
before then, because sometimes they'll do that if they're releasing something because they want people to go buy it.
Yeah.
Now, is this the week also that...
Terror.
Spearhead from Space comes out on Blu-ray.
and
Terror of the Zygon?
Schalke.
13?
Oh,
Doesn't Schalke...
Yeah.
Is that
Scream of the
this week?
Schalke.
Scream of the Schalke. I kept wanting to say Schalke Doctor. I was like, that's not the name
Scream
of
of
it.
the Schalke is
also that
coupled
week.
with that week as well.
Which I'm toying with the idea of throwing that into our 11 weeks for 11 Doctors, even though it doesn't really fit, but maybe.
Whatever, I enjoy that story.
I enjoy that story too, and it'd be fun to watch that with a group.
You would.
Because we haven't done it as of Friday Night Who, obviously, because
No.
it wasn't available. But
We've
we have
reviewed it,
reviewed
but we haven't done it.
So maybe later we'll get that on the schedule too. Anyway, so there's that.
Maybe you guys will read Blood of Stone, or no, what was it? Stones of Blood? No, what was the vampiric story that I read? You guys did. I don't think you read. Did you? It's the second Schalke Doctor story. It was a
Scream of the Schalke comes out in September
Oh, is it
with
September?
Ice Warriors.
Oh, okay.
it is
Oh,
paired
that's
with
what it
Ice
is.
Warriors.
Okay.
I know it was paired with something. But we'll still have it before we
So
do
it's still
12
two
weeks.
Pertwees next week.
Yeah.
What is that?
Something Blood, I thought, or
I haven't read it.
Stone something. I can't remember what it is. It was a short story in a magazine, and it's the Schalke Doctor and the Master, Android Master. Whatever. We'll revisit it when we watch Schalke Doctor again. Maybe it'll be on the disc. Maybe it'll be
That'd be kinda
PDF
cool.
material on the disc.
I don't think it is, but that'd be cool. I just like watching you stumble around in the dark.
In fact, I think they do that in the story. They're stumbling around in the dark. I'm serious. I think they do. I don't remember the story that well, other than it was a vampiric type entity that was feeding off of their memories and emotions.
So that's where that's at. So next
right.
week is the Dragonfire.
Terrific. Well,
And one of the most literal cliffhangers in the history of Doctor Who.
the most literal cliffhanger in the history of Doctor Who. All right. Well, if that's going to do it for this week, until next week, we have any last minute feedback other than okay.
Nope.
I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Take a deep breath, like you're going to say something different.
I want you to think maybe there's a possibility,
I do every time. I wait with baby.
but not this week.
Fly me high through the starry skies.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.